Lampung, serta jajaran Baik Bapak Ibu hadirin undangan yang kami hormati, kita akan segera memulai acara seremonial pembukaan pada pagi hari ini. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Selamat pagi dan salam sejahtera untuk kita semua. Tabi pun. Alhamdulillahirabbil alamin. Assalatu wassalamu ala asrafil anbiya wal mursalin wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajmain. Yang terhormat Ketua BKS PTN Barat Profesor Dr. Salampak MS IPU yang mengikuti kegiatan kita secara Zoom. Yang kami hormati Rektor Universitas Lampung, ya sekaligus sebagai pimpinan BKS PTN Barat, Profesor Dr. Insinyur Lusmelia Afriani DEA IPM ASEAN Eng. Yang kami hormati Ketua Forum Ketua LPPM BKS PTN Barat, Ibu Sri Lestari Wahyuningrum MA PhD. Yang kami hormati Wakil Rektor 1 Universitas Lampung. Yang kami hormati Ketua LPPM Universitas Lampung. Yang kami hormati Ibu Kate Tipis, Vice President of Academic Partners. Yang kami hormati jajaran pimpinan di lingkungan Universitas Lampung, Ketua Senat, para Wakil Rektor, Ketua SPI, Dekan dan Direktur Pasca Sarjana, Kepala Lembaga, Kepala Biro dan Kepala Upang. Yang kami hormati para Kapuslit LPPM. Yang kami hormati para editor, Dewan Editor, Reviewer, Pengelola Jurnal dan Operator Jurnal dari seluruh PTN Barat dan seluruh peserta konferensi pengelolaan Jurnal BKS PTN Barat tahun 2026, hadirin dan undangan yang berbahagia. Syukur kehadirat Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala dengan teriring ucapan Alhamdulillah atas segala limpahan rahmat, karunia, keberkahan kepada kita semua, sehingga kita bisa hadir di ruang sidang utama Gedung Rektorat Universitas Lampung pada acara pagi hari ini. Salawat dan salam kepada junjungan besar kita Nabi Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. Bapak Ibu hadirin undangan yang kami hormati, selamat datang pada acara Konferensi Pengelolaan Jurnal BKS PTN Barat tahun 2026 yang mengusung tema Penguatan Tata Kelola Jurnal Nasional menuju Indeksasi Internasional dan Kolaborasi Publikasi Ilmiah BKS PTN Barat. Bandar Lampung, 8-10 Juli tahun 2026. Hadirin, mohon tepuk tangan untuk acara konferensi pada pagi hari ini. Mengawali acara kita, mari bersama kita buka dengan mengucap lafaz basmalah. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Hadirin undangan yang kami hormati, selanjutnya kita akan sejenak menyaksikan video safety induction untuk ruang sidang utama pada pagi hari ini.
Selamat datang di Gedung Rektorat Universitas Lampung. Gedung ini memiliki fasilitas 5 lantai dan Anda saat ini sedang berada di ruang sidang utama yang terletak di lantai 2. Sesuai dengan standar keselamatan dan kesehatan kerja, setiap tamu yang datang harus diberikan safety induction selama berada di dalam ruangan. Apabila terjadi keadaan darurat yang mengharuskan kita untuk evakuasi, seperti kebakaran, harap tetap tenang dan jangan panik. Ruangan ini merupakan ruangan bebas asap rokok. Oleh karena itu, Anda dilarang merokok di dalam ruangan. Ruangan ini memiliki pintu akses utama yang berada di bagian belakang ruangan. Segera tinggalkan ruangan ini melalui pintu tersebut. Dan sebagai fasilitas tanggap darurat kebakaran, di area koridor lantai 2 ini telah dilengkapi dengan alat pemadam api ringan. Karena kita saat ini berada di lantai 2, kami ingatkan untuk tidak menggunakan lift sama sekali. Silahkan berjalan dengan cepat tanpa berlari menuju satu akses tangga yang tersedia di sayap gedung untuk turun ke lantai dasar, dan satu akses tangga yang berada di dekat lift. Apabila terjadi keadaan darurat gempa bumi, Anda bisa berlindung di bawah meja rapat dengan melindungi kepala dan leher Anda menggunakan kedua tangan. Setelah guncangan gempa bumi mereda, Anda bisa menuju titik kumpul yang berada di area luar gedung. Setelah tiba di lantai dasar, teruslah berjalan menuju titik kumpul yang berada di halaman luar. Jangan pernah kembali ke dalam gedung dengan alasan mengambil barang yang tertinggal, sampai ada pernyataan aman dari petugas yang berwenang. Demikian petunjuk keselamatan ini kami sampaikan. Terima kasih atas perhatian dan kerjasamanya. Selamat menjalani aktivitas di Ruang Sidang Utama Universitas Lampung.
Baik, Bapak Ibu hadirin undangan yang kami hormati, kita akan melanjutkan acara selanjutnya menyanyikan lagu kebangsaan Indonesia Raya. Hadirin dimohon berdiri. Universitas Lampung. PTN BKS Barat.
BKS PTN Barat wujudkan cita mulia untuk masa depan generasi bangsa. BKS PTN Barat bersama membangun negeri sebagai pilar tridharma perguruan tinggi. Di ufuk barat cahaya menyala, ilmu tumbuh di tanah Nusantara. Perguruan tinggi bersatu suara, menggenggam cita-cita untuk bangsa tercinta. BKS PTN Barat melangkah maju dalam samudera, mengabdi menginspirasi membangun negeri. Bersama kita tegakkan asa menuju Indonesia jaya. Satukan langkah, satukan tekad, mewujudkan mimpi yang kuat demi kejayaan pendidikan untuk Nusantara yang berkelanjutan. Menggandeng tangan mencapai satu tujuan, berbagi ilmu, harapan dan pengetahuan. Kerjasama kolaborasi jadi kekuatan untuk mencapai cita dan harapan. BKS PTN Barat melangkah maju dalam samudera, mengabdi menginspirasi membangun negeri. Bersama kita tegakkan asa menuju Indonesia jaya.
Hadirin dipersilakan duduk kembali. Bapak Ibu hadirin undangan yang kami hormati, untuk hikmat dan lancarnya acara kita selama 3 hari ke depan, sejenak kita akan berdoa yang akan diimami oleh Saudara Muhisom SPDI MPDI. Dipersilakan.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Bapak Ibu hadirin sekalian, marilah kita menundukkan kepala sejenak seraya kita berdoa menurut agama dan kepercayaan masing-masing agar konferensi pengelolaan jurnal BKS PTN Barat tahun 2026 dapat berjalan dengan lancar dan memperoleh kepada Allah Subhanahu wa taala. Amin. Allahumma amin. Mohon izin untuk mengimami secara Islam. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Allahumma sholli ala sayyidina Muhammadin wa ala ali sayyidina Muhammad walhamdulillahi rabbil alamin hamdan syakirin hamdan na'imin hamdan ni'amahu wa yukafi'u mazidah ya rabbana lakal hamdu kama yanbaghi li jalalika wa adimi sultanik. Ya Allah, puji syukur kami haturkan kehadiratmu atas segala nikmat yang kau anugerahkan kepada kami, sehingga kami dapat mengikuti konferensi pengelolaan jurnal BKS PTN Barat tahun 2026. Berkahi dan rahmatilah kegiatan ini ya Allah. Ya Allah, jadikanlah konferensi pengelolaan jurnal ini dapat meningkatkan pengelolaan serta akreditasi jurnal di instansi kami. Ya Allah, ya Rahman, jadikan hasil riset kami dapat memberikan kontribusi dan dampak bagi masyarakat, juga memberikan kontribusi positif bagi kemajuan bangsa Indonesia. Allahumma ftah alaina futuhal arifin warzuqna fahman nabiyyin wa ilhamil malaikatikal muqarrabin. Rabbana atina fid dunya hasanah wa fil akhirati hasanah wa qina azabannar. Subhana rabbika rabbil izzati amma yasifun wa salamun alal mursalin walhamdulillahi rabbil alamin. Amin amin. Terima kasih. Saya akhiri, wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Alhamdulillahirabbil alamin. Bapak Ibu hadirin undangan yang kami hormati, selanjutnya kita akan mendengarkan laporan Ketua Forum Ketua BKS PTN Barat untuk pelaksanaan kegiatan konferensi pada hari ini kepada yang terhormat Ibu Sri Lestari Wahyuningrum MA PhD, dipersilakan.
Baik, Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Om Swastiastu, Namo Buddhaya, salam kebajikan. Selamat pagi Bapak Ibu sekalian yang kami hormati, Rektor Unila, Bu, selamat pagi Bu. Pak Warek yang juga sudah hadir di sini, kemudian Pak Kepala PMPM, Pak Maulana, juga Kathy, dan teman-teman Taylor and Francis, juga para jajaran di Unila yang juga sudah berkenan hadir untuk kegiatan hari ini. Bapak Ibu, para kepala LPPM, 39 anggota PTN BKS PTN Barat, baik yang hadir di sini dan mungkin kebanyakan bisa join di Zoom. Juga Bapak Ibu para pengelola jurnal yang sudah hadir di sini dan rekan-rekan peserta sekalian. Juga rekan-rekan tim kami dari UPN Veteran Jakarta yang juga sudah hadir hari ini, dan alhamdulillah kita berkumpul hari ini untuk mengikuti kegiatan pertama yang baru pertama kali menurut Pak Dirjen Najib Burhani. Ini pertama kalinya ada konferensi pengelola jurnal, dan memang di forum LPPM BKS PTN Barat kami sejak 2 tahun yang lalu memang sudah ada pembicaraan awal gitu ya, keinginan untuk membuat satu kolaborasi atau pengembangan bersama jurnal-jurnal di 39 PTN anggota. Tapi memang belum pernah ada kesempatan untuk betul-betul formulasikan seperti apa bentuknya. Nah, alhamdulillahnya awal tahun ini Pak Warek 1 justru yang mencetuskan ide gagasannya di rapat tahunan Forum BKS Barat. Nah, karena Pak Warek waktu itu sepertinya bisa membaca keinginan dari para anggota Forum LPPM, alhamdulillah sekali kemudian ada dukungan dan kesediaan dari LPPM Unila untuk bisa berkolaborasi melaksanakan kegiatan hari ini. Jadi terima kasih banyak Bu Rektor, Pak Warek 1 dan Pak Maulana dan teman-teman tim dari LPPM Unila. Forum LPPM BKS Barat ini memang lumayan aktif, alhamdulillah sejak 2 tahun terakhir ini atau 3 tahun terakhir ini. Kami intens bertemu minimal setahun 2 kali, bukan untuk koordinasi saja, tapi juga biasanya sekaligus untuk melakukan kegiatan-kegiatan kolaborasi. Jadi yang kemarin juga baru kami luncurkan adalah hibah kolaborasi riset dan pengabdian kepada masyarakat. Ini juga yang pertama kali dan mudah-mudahan setiap tahun akan ada hibah. Tahun ini yang berpartisipasi memang baru 8 PTN. Sebetulnya kami mengadopsi dari format RKI ya, hibah kolaborasi. Kemudian kita memodifikasi tentu dengan kemampuan masing-masing PTN. Dan tahun ini memang ada 8 kalau tidak salah yang didanai untuk hibah kolaborasi. Tapi mudah-mudahan tahun depan termasuk Unila, mudah-mudahan Bu Rektor juga bisa berpartisipasi di hibah kolaborasi Forum LPPM yang mendanai secara kolaboratif penelitian dan abdimas. Nah, selain itu juga ada beberapa kegiatan lain juga, termasuk juga kemarin kita melakukan abdimas bersama dengan penanaman bersama gitu ya. Kemudian juga rapat-rapat sebelumnya juga ada kegiatan-kegiatan lain, dan ini termasuk yang kita persiapkan sudah cukup lama dan alhamdulillah bisa terlaksana. Intinya sebetulnya dengan kegiatan hari ini kami berharap bukan saja bisa menguatkan pengembangan jurnal-jurnal di PTN-PTN kita, tapi juga bisa berkolaborasi. Karena selama ini mungkin kalau kita jalan sendiri-sendiri ada beberapa kendala dan kesulitan, tapi mungkin kalau kita bisa berkolaborasi, kerjasama, mungkin reviewer bisa kita kolaborasikan atau mungkin dari sisi tulisannya, pengembangan kelembagaannya, kapasitas pengelolaannya dan SDM-nya dan sebagainya. Hal-hal yang sebetulnya kalau kita bisa lakukan bersama-sama mungkin lebih jauh yang bisa kita dan lebih banyak yang bisa kita lakukan daripada kalau kita hanya melakukan masing-masing. Sebetulnya saya pikir itu juga prinsip yang utama di forum BKS Barat, Bu Rektor, supaya kolaborasi ini bisa membawa kita jauh dan makin meningkat kalau bisa di level global supaya mendapatkan rekognisi untuk negeri tercinta. Mungkin dari kami seperti itu sementara ini. Terima kasih banyak. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Sambutan Rektor Universitas Lampung. Beliau nanti yang akan juga membuka kegiatan pada pagi hari ini, dan beliau juga merupakan bendahara di BKS PTN Barat. Kepada yang terhormat Profesor Dr. Insinyur Lusmelia Afriani DIPM ASEAN Eng, dipersilakan.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Selamat pagi, salam sejahtera untuk kita semua. Shalom, Am Swastiastu, Namo Buddhaya, salam kebajikan. Tabi pun. Ini Bapak Ibu yang dari luar Provinsi Lampung, ini ada salam khas Lampung. Salam khas Lampung, tabi pun yang artinya izinkan saya bicara. Ya, jadi dijawab iya pun. Sekali lagi, tabi pun. Terima kasih, berarti Bapak Ibu sudah resmi datang ke Provinsi Lampung. Yang saya hormati Ketua BKS PTN Barat, Bapak Profesor Dr. Insinyur Salampak MS IPU, yang rencana beliau akan hadir secara online dan akan membuka acara ini karena beliau ada kegiatan yang tidak bisa ditinggalkan pada saat ini, sehingga beliau meminta saya untuk menyampaikan amanah beliau dan sekaligus untuk membuka acara kegiatan hari ini. Dan sekaligus juga saya sebagai tuan rumah juga ingin menyampaikan terima kasih kepada Bapak Ibu sudah hadir ke Universitas Lampung. Para pimpinan perguruan tinggi negeri anggota BKS Barat yang hadir secara online ataupun yang secara langsung ke dalam ruangan ini, dan saya sampaikan selamat datang di Provinsi Lampung dan di Universitas Lampung, dan Ketua Forum BKS PTN Barat Ibu Sri Lestari Wahyu Ningrum PhD, Ibu ya, tadi sudah memberikan sambutannya. Maaf Bapak Ibu. Katie Pitts sebagai Vice President of Academic Partners dari Taylor & Friends. Ketua Senat Ibu hadir juga. Maaf. Kemudian ini ada Wakil Rektor 1, Wakil Rektor 2. Kemudian hadir para dekan, Ketua Lembaga LPMPP, tentu Pak Ketua LPMPP Universitas Lampung yang punya hajat pada pagi hari ini, Bapak Ibu yang hadir, LPPM dan keluarga besarnya, Bapak Ibu tim peneliti dan juga pengelola jurnal yang hadir pada hari ini, semua yang insya Allah kita semua dilindungi oleh Allah Subhanahu Wa Taala. Ya. Pertama, marilah kita puji syukur panjatkan kepada Allah Subhanahu Wa Taala berkat rahmat dan hidayatnya. Alhamdulillah kita semua berkumpul pada hari ini dalam keadaan sehat walafiat, dan sekali lagi terima kasih kepada Ibu Ketua Forum LPPM BKS PTN Barat dan Bapak Ibu Ketua LPPM di lingkungan BKS PTN Barat, baik secara online atau secara langsung tatap muka di ruangan ini dalam kegiatan Konferensi Pengelola Jurnal BKS PTN Barat tahun 2026. Bapak Ibu, atas nama Universitas Lampung, sekali lagi kami mengucapkan terima kasih kepercayaan BKS PTN Barat untuk menyelenggarakan kegiatan ini di Universitas Lampung di tanah Sai Bumi Ruang Jurai. Mudah-mudahan Bapak Ibu betah tinggal di Provinsi Lampung ini. Sekali lagi, forum ini adalah merupakan suatu forum yang sangat strategis sekali karena LPPM ini ada menyangkut masalah penelitian dan pengabdian kepada masyarakat, dan tentu ini adalah rumahnya jurnal, ya kan. Jadi kegiatan ini adalah merupakan suatu hal yang sangat penting. Saya berharap Bapak Ibu dapat memberikan pertukaran informasi, saling memberikan ilmu masing-masing dan pengalaman masing-masing di perguruan tinggi Bapak Ibu untuk meningkatkan pengelolaan jurnal yang ada di khususnya untuk BKS PTN Barat. Bapak Ibu, saat ini Unila ada 8 fakultas, satu program pasca sarjana. Kami mengelola 161 jurnal yang aktif, dan untuk jurnal conference aktif juga Unila di urutan ke-10 nasional yang diindeksasi oleh Garuda, dan 5 jurnal terindeks Scopus yang ada di Universitas Lampung, serta 65 jurnal terakreditasi Sinta. Sisanya memang dalam proses pengajuan akreditasi. Mungkin di tempat Bapak Ibu ada lebih daripada jurnal-jurnal ini yang dikelola, dan ini adalah merupakan ajang kita saling membentukkan informasi, mencari pengalaman bagaimana untuk meningkatkan jurnal-jurnal yang ada di perguruan tinggi masing-masing dan di BKS PTN Barat, supaya kegiatan BKS PTN Barat ini semakin berdampak nyata untuk ilmu pengetahuan dan sebagainya. Bapak Ibu, tugas besar ini tidak dapat dikerjakan sendiri-sendiri. Kita membutuhkan kolaborasi yang nyata. Jurnal yang sudah maju dapat mendampingi jurnal yang sedang berkembang. Nah, itu yang kita harapkan. Perguruan tinggi yang memiliki sistem pengelolaan baik dapat berbagi pengalaman dengan perguruan tinggi lainnya. Wadah BKS PTN Barat kita juga selain jurnal, pengelolaan jurnal, dan juga kita memberikan beberapa reward kepada teman-teman dosen yang membuat suatu karya ilmiah dan sebagainya. Kemudian ada juga pertemuan-pertemuan di bidang ilmu lainnya, dan ini adalah kebersamaan kita bahwa kita tidak bisa berdiri sendiri, kita bisa bersama-sama, itu lebih baik dan menjadikan institusi kita merupakan institusi yang berdampak bagi masyarakat luas. Saya menyampaikan terima kasih kepada BKS PTN Barat, narasumber, panitia, serta seluruh peserta yang hadir secara luring maupun daring. Semoga konferensi ini berjalan lancar, memberikan manfaat dan menghasilkan tindak lanjut yang jelas bagi penguatan tata kelola jurnal di lingkungan BKS PTN Barat. Bapak Ibu yang saya hormati, sebelum secara resmi membuka kegiatan ini, izinkan saya menyampaikan sebuah pantun penutup. Cakep aja ya Bapak Ibu. Pergi ke pasar membeli alpukat.
Cakep.
Pulang bersama membawa pepaya.
Cakep.
Nah, ini dia beli alpukat, pulangnya pepaya. Ini panitia buat jadi salah ini.
Enggak kompak ya.
Jurnal bermutu kita perkuat, BKS PTN Barat makin berjaya.
Mantap.
Dengan mengucapkan basmalah, bismillahirrahmanirrahim, kegiatan Konferensi Pengelola Jurnal BKS PTN Barat tahun 2026 secara resmi saya nyatakan dibuka. Terima kasih Bapak Ibu. Semoga Bapak Ibu dapat menikmati dari hari ini, besok sampai dengan lusa, dan semua kegiatannya dapat diikuti oleh Bapak Ibu, dan nanti malam juga kami mengundang ya untuk makan malam bersama di gedung ini juga, dan Bapak Ibu juga bisa mungkin nanti dengan Pak Maulana keliling Universitas Lampung dan apa yang bisa kita kolaborasikan bersama. Mumpung Bapak Ibu ada di sini, bersama-sama kita membangun negeri ini untuk kemajuan kita bersama. Wallahu muwaffiq ila aqwamit thoriq. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Hadirin sekali lagi mohon tepuk tangan untuk sambutan Rektor Universitas Lampung yang sekaligus membuka kegiatan seminar konferensi pengelolaan jurnal kita pada pagi hari ini. Sebelum kita melanjut ke acara berikutnya, terlebih dahulu adalah penyerahan plakat, souvenir dan selendang tapis. Ibu Rektor mohon bisa hadir ke depan. Pak WR, Pak Maulana, Ibu Sri, kemudian juga Miss Katy Fis juga hadir. Ya. Ya, penyerahan selendang tapis ya, oleh Ibu Rektor ke Miss Katy. Ya. Ke plakat. Plakat. Pak Wakil Rektor 2 mohon bergabung untuk nanti foto bersama Pak. Ibu Ketua Senat silakan. Para dekan untuk bisa bergabung dan juga ketua lembaga. Ya. Silakan Ibu Ketua Senat, Pak Wakil Rektor 2, para dekan dan ketua lembaga. Be strong, ya. Terima kasih Bapak Ibu pimpinan, kami silakan untuk kembali ke tempat. Dan Bapak Ibu hadirin undangan yang kami hormati, kita akan langsung nanti menuju sesi pertama, tapi kita akan jeda sebentar untuk coffee break dan Bapak Ibu tidak perlu keluar ruangan, nanti akan diantarkan ke meja masing-masing untuk coffee break yang nanti akan langsung dipersiapkan oleh panitia. Baik Bapak Ibu peserta boleh maju ke depan saja, lebih karena depannya kosong, boleh merapat ke depan supaya lebih enak dan lebih fokus ke depan. Silakan nanti menempati kursi yang kosong di depan. Kami persilakan bergeser ke depan dan nanti akan ada sesi pertama untuk kesempatan pagi hari ini. Silakan Bapak Ibu mengisi tempat kursi yang di depan yang kosong, silakan diisi. Masih. Ya. Baik Bapak Ibu hadirin undangan yang kami hormati, kita akan langsung untuk sesi pertama pada kesempatan pagi hari ini yang akan dimoderatori oleh Ibu Sri Lestari Wahyudingrum, MA PhD, dan pemateri kita Ibu Katie Peace dari Vice President of Academic Partnership. Dan mari kita ikuti kegiatan kita pada pagi hari ini untuk sesi pertama, dan kami persilakan kepada Ibu Sri Lestari Wahyudingrum untuk memandu acara sesi pertama pada pagi hari ini. Dipersilakan.
Oke, baik. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Selamat pagi lagi, salam sejahtera, salam sehat semuanya, Bapak Ibu yang ada di ruangan ini maupun di ruangan virtual. Kita kedatangan sebelumnya mungkin sebagaimana Bapak Ibu ketahui ada sedikit perubahan dalam susunan acara kegiatan kita, yang harusnya sesi awal dimulai dengan keynote dari Pak Dirjen Prof. Najib Burhani, tapi kemudian karena beliau harus menghadiri sesuatu dengan Pak Presiden sehingga tidak memungkinkan, tidak terkejar waktunya untuk ke sini terus kembali lagi ke Jakarta, sehingga kita memodifikasi beliau nanti masuk di sesi besok pagi besok. Jadi kita masih tetap akan dapat kesempatan untuk mendapatkan insights dan rencana pengembangan kementerian ya nasional, bagaimana jurnal ini nanti akan dikuatkan di Indonesia, ekosistemnya, tata kelolanya, pendanaannya. Nah, paling penting pendanaan memang. Dan alhamdulillah kita mengisi dengan pertemuan hari ini, kita mengisi dengan kolaborasinya. Nah, itu yang diapresiasi oleh Pak Dirjen karena kita sudah one step ahead, maybe two step ahead dari rencana pengembangan ekosistem. Kita malah sudah berpikir untuk kolaborasi, sehingga ini reminder juga untuk Bapak Ibu. Besok kita ada sesi untuk mendiskusikan pengembangan kolaborasi di 39 PTN. Mudah-mudahan Bapak Ibu berkenan untuk join dan kita rembukan di sana, saling berbagi gagasan, ide ya, dan sebagainya. Baik, untuk sesi kali ini terima kasih Pak Maulana dan tim LPPM Unila memberi kesempatan saya untuk menjadi moderator, memoderasi sesi diskusi dengan narasumber kita, Kathy Peace, Ibu Kathy. Sebelumnya saya Sri Lestari Wahyuningrum atau mungkin dipanggil Ayu, saya Ketua LPPM di UPN Veteran Jakarta bersama tim saya di sini. Kemudian yang kedua saya akan memperkenalkan narasumber kita hari ini, Ibu Kathy. Ibu Kathy ini sudah 20 tahun lebih berkecimpung menjadi ahli di bidang publikasi, perjurnalan, buku dan sebagainya. Beliau sekarang dipercaya menjadi Vice President di Taylor & Francis, sebuah entitas yang kita sudah kenal baik di kalangan akademisi dan peneliti. Dan peran strategis ini juga sebetulnya memberi kesempatan untuk beliau untuk terlibat di kerjasama akademik dengan bukan saja perguruan tinggi tapi juga lembaga-lembaga akademik lainnya secara internasional. Beliau berbasis di Singapura, ya, sudah 15 tahun katanya di Singapura meskipun aslinya orang Inggris. Dan penggemar bola, you a fan of football? Yeah, your team? Oh, Harry Kane, yeah. Kemarin Inggris masuk ya di ini, jadi alhamdulillah kita merayakan dengan Bu Kathy di sini. Anyway, Kathy akan bicara dalam bahasa Inggris. Mudah-mudahan Bapak Ibu tidak keberatan, tapi saya siap untuk membantu. Kathy juga membawa timnya, booth-nya ada di luar, tapi nanti timnya juga bisa bantu kalau ada informasi lain yang dibutuhkan. Baik, with no further ado, please, Kathy.
Selamat pagi. Terima kasih for having me here today. Thank you so much to Ibu Ayu and esteemed colleagues from all over this region. I'm very excited to be here. I will be talking in English. I apologize that I don't have very good Bahasa Indonesian, but if you are struggling to understand, or I'm going too fast, or you'd like me to repeat something, just put your hand up, because I'm here for you to get some answers, and it will not work if you don't understand me. So please it's okay, just put your hand up. There will be question time at the end. I'm going to speak for about maybe 40 minutes. If you have questions, please save them till the end. Hopefully I will explain some of your questions. I will answer some of your questions as we go. But the presentation I've prepared, I'm hoping will give you some insight into Taylor & Francis and who we are and the publications that we publish. I'm going to talk about some of the situation around research ethics integrity, particularly in the age of AI, which I think is going to be quite important to all of you. I'm going to talk about Indonesia and publication. Is that me? Sorry. And the publications in Indonesia and the context of Indonesian publications, so I'll talk about that. And then a little bit about how Taylor & Francis can help you as journal managers to improve your journals. And then, as I say, there'll be time for Q&A. Is it possible to start the slides? Okay. Just a little bit about me. I think we already had a little introduction, but I'm English originally, but I've been living in Asia for 15 years. So I'm based in our Singapore office, and my job as the Vice President of Academic Partnerships for Asia is to help to support partners like your institutions to improve the publication output with Taylor & Francis. We want to help you and be your partner. So my job is to support universities in Asia to improve the publication output. So please do ask all your questions today in the session, or you can come and speak to me or my two colleagues who are outside at the Taylor & Francis stand. Okay, so next slide, please. So as I say, I'm going to introduce Taylor & Francis. We'll talk about research ethics in the age of AI, an Indonesian perspective around publications, and then opportunities for Indonesian researchers. Okay, next slide, please. So Taylor & Francis is one of the top 4 publishing companies in the world. We have a huge number of publications across books and journals, and these 6 are our main brands that you would have heard under Taylor & Francis. So Taylor & Francis publishes around 2,600 journals. We also have Routledge, which is our social science and humanities books imprint, and CRC Press, where we publish our STEM books. We also have 3 open access journal publishing imprints, PeerJ, F1000, and Dove Press, and I'll talk about more of those in a minute. Next slide, please. We're really excited to be working with the Indonesian Academy of Sciences for a brand new journal called the Journal of the Indonesian Academy of Sciences. The editor-in-chief is Berry Juliandi, and the deputy editor-in-chief is Hadi Hadianto. This journal's launching in 2027, but is open now for submissions if you'd like to submit to the journal. It's a fully open access, multidisciplinary journal, and the publications are going to be in biological and medical sciences, economics and social sciences, engineering and technology, and physical and mathematical science. Yeah? Let's try. Is that better? Okay, this way. It still sounds like a bit of interference, but... You just can hear this like background noise. Move closer. Okay, I might have to... Is it better? Can you hear me better now? Okay. I think it's, or is it the noise? I think, can you hear me now?
Now it's better. Yeah.
Yeah, okay, apologies. Sorry. So put your hands up if you can't hear me. Okay, so Taylor & Francis publishes a lot of open access journals, and particularly of interest to you may be the Cogent open access journals that we publish. So these are broad open access journals in various subject areas. I've given just a few examples here: Cogent Engineering, Cogent Social Sciences, Cogent Education, and Cogent Economics and Finance, including the Scopus, site score, and the impact factor of those journals. So these are broad open access journals that accept articles in all of these areas. The nice thing about these particular journals is that they accept journals where there is potentially null results. They accept articles where, as long as the research has been done in a sound way, they're very accepting of articles from all different countries. They're very keen on Indonesian research, so we've had a lot of success getting Indonesian research published in these journals. So these would be a good option for you, is it not? Is it okay? Okay. And then Peer-J open access journals, we also have these two, which are in the STEM subject areas as well. So this is some open access journals for you to consider for your own publications. Okay, next slide, please. And then the final bit on these open access journals, we have Dove Medical Press, which is our specialist open access press for medical journals. I've given an example there of some of our medical journals. And then F1000 Research is also an open access site which offers personalized portals for institutions to have their own section of F1000 for open access articles as well. And it also includes open peer review, so it's a really innovative platform. Okay, next slide, please. One thing that's really interesting about Taylor & Francis is that we actually have the most balanced portfolio of any of the large publishers. So Taylor & Francis has around 25% of our publications are in social science and humanities. 25% is in science and technology, 25% is in medicine and health, and 25% is in arts and humanities as well. So if your library is interested in subscribing to have access to these journals, you can subscribe to Taylor & Francis and have a fantastic coverage of all the different subject areas across our 2,500 journals. So we're very balanced. We have an outlet and a journal for just about every subject area. Next slide, please. We're also a very high quality publisher. We have, across our 2,500 journals, 94% of our journals are Scopus indexed. I know that Scopus is a really important metric for a lot of your journals, so we can talk about how that works and how we've had such success in terms of getting Scopus indexed for our journals. We also have around 85% of all of our journals are indexed in the Web of Science as well and have an impact factor. The excluding journals are often new launches, so they're not yet indexed, or in the arts and humanities where it can be harder to get the citations for that to achieve an impact factor. And nearly 80% of our journals, if you look at the pie chart, have a Q1 or Q2 best site score. So again, in terms of quality, we have a very, very strong portfolio of journals. And we tend to only focus on those journals where we can really build that quality. Okay, next slide, please. A little bit about numbers. We have around 430 million journal article downloads every year and about 450,000 authors. In terms of impact, around 50% of TNF journals are cited in patents, and over 80% are cited in policy documents. So we really want to make sure that the research that we're publishing is also then reaching the end user in terms of the policymakers, patents for product development or engineering. We want to make sure that there's impact with the research that we publish, and that's something that we can help with. We partner with over 700 universities, societies, and organizations. And in terms of articles online, we have around 5.3 million published articles, so it's a lot. And of those, around 384,000 are open access. Okay, next slide, please. So Taylor & Francis's slogan, sort of motto, is that we want to create impact and foster human progress through knowledge. So it's not just about publishing, it's about how do we help to improve lives and actually have a meaningful impact. And I know that many of your universities are really moving in that direction in terms of impact. And how does the research that you publish have real value to teachers or to engineers or to data scientists? So very much Taylor & Francis is looking at that. This is just 3 examples of some of the content that we've published and how it's driven that content impact. So driving change in global equality. The research was that UK academics showed girls in Nepal illegally being forced to sleep outside in menstruation huts during their period. The impact was that hundreds of media articles from leading outlets like CNN and ABC took this article and this research, and the paper has now been cited within policy documents all over the world. in terms of shaping technology policy, the research was around who controls the legislation and limits of AI, very important topic. And US-based Dr. Roman Yampolsky explored this in his book, AI Unexplainable, Unpredictable and Uncontrollable. The impact was that media coverage, including Newsweek and podcast channels, attracted millions of listeners. We also helped Dr. Yampolsky speak with the US Senate on AI safety. So that's taking a book and book research and then really elevating that to be impactful on a government level. And then educating the next generation, Chilean experts showed board games to boost math ability in young children, and the impact, extensive coverage with over 550 media pieces. The article has the second highest impact score for any education paper. So we have a whole team whose job is to help us to work with our authors, work with our journal managers, work with our editorial teams to find what are the most impactful papers that are being published and what can we do with those to really amplify those messages for a global market. Okay, next slide, please. I've mentioned books. We publish over 8,000 books every year. This is just a small example of some of the books that we publish, but our ebook collection is a fantastic resource for your library to subscribe to because it will give you such in-depth knowledge around so many different topics. So if you're publishing in education, we have a huge education portfolio, for example, engineering, AI, statistics, economics, you name it, we have a huge range. So this is just an example here. One of the books on the bottom left for you, Strengthening Indonesia's Higher Education System, is just about to come out. That's a new book that's just being published, so look out for some of these fantastic titles. And we publish textbooks, we publish research books, and we also publish books for a professional market as well. Okay, next slide, please. Next slide, please. So I mentioned that our job as a publisher is to help support researchers and universities, and we do this in every aspect of the publication process. So starting at the top with the hypothesis, this initial starting point for your research is supported by access to the latest literature and research findings. One of the things that I think is really interesting about Indonesia, and particularly the government policy here, is that your government has very much focused on publication, lots of open access publications, which is really exciting. But in terms of access, if you don't have access to that latest research from other people outside of Indonesia, it's very difficult for your articles to talk to and interact with the other researchers outside of Indonesia. So the access piece and understanding what else is being published in your particular specialty area is really important in order to create a hypothesis for your research, which is going to be new and different and interesting to a wider audience. So that access piece is very, very important. So we start with the hypothesis. How can we help support our researchers to really come up with a very innovative and new and fresh idea for their research? And you may wish to publish a literature review of the latest discoveries in the field. Then moving next to experiment, you might wish to publish a plan design or methodology as a registered report or study protocol. This is a chance to get methods, your methods section peer-reviewed. It doesn't need to be the full article. You can actually do something with the methodology section of your research or the study protocol. Then the results. You can share a preprint on Verichive. We have a fantastic preprint server called Verichive, which ensures validation. We offer trust markers to show that the research is of a high quality in terms of research integrity before it goes to any publication. It's a fantastic service to ensure that your article goes into a top class, a Q1 or Q2 journal, already validated as quality. So Verichive is a fantastic preprint offering that we've produced. And it's one of the only preprint servers that offers that validation trust markers to show that it's been already vetted and checked. Moving on to preparing manuscripts and publications, we can help to optimize your manuscript through our language polishing services, and we can help to publish those research articles and books for open access for maximum impact. Open access is something that Taylor & Francis is doing and has been doing. It's one of the leading open access publishers. And then finally, creating impact. I've mentioned that impact piece. So we can help with impact reporting. We can support your library or your research office in terms of understanding how the articles that you've published have had real value and real impact on the audiences that you're trying to reach, and helped promote and amplify those messages to an international audience. Taylor & Francis has offices in almost every country around the world, and we have a huge, huge number of sales and marketing staff who can help to sell the kind of research that you've done to a wide audience. So it's really important that you have put that article, that work into that article, that it gets as far as it possibly can. So that's how Taylor & Francis is supporting researchers across the life cycle. Okay, next slide, please. So I think we can all agree that research ethics and integrity is a really important aspect of publishing. And actually, the number of ethics cases that we've seen, this slide is showing the kind of increase in the number of ethics cases we've been experiencing in terms of things that have been flagged to us or that we've noticed over the last 10 years. And it's just shot up because there is so much pressure to publish, there's so little time to do it, and I think there's sometimes a fundamental lack of understanding around what constitutes problems with ethics. Taylor & Francis is a leader in raising standards in research, and we recognise, and my team particularly recognises, that sometimes it just comes from a lack of training, a lack of education around international standards, and that's something we feel very strongly about. Next slide, please. So I'm going to talk a little bit about research ethics in the age of AI. Put your hand up if you have concerns about trying to identify where something's been written by AI in one of your journals, right? Put your hand up if you have seen reviewer reports come in that maybe have been written by AI. I'm actually surprised that you haven't all put your hands up. This is one of the most pressing things that we hear from our journal managers and our editors of our journals. And I'm not going to tell you that I have all the answers, but I can give you some ideas about how we are handling research ethics in the age of AI at Taylor & Francis. Next slide, please. So I hope that perhaps you've all seen on the right-hand side, it was a recent case that sparked some controversy around research integrity in Indonesia, particularly at a Denmark scientific conference. One particular researcher presented a number of different papers. She changed her outfit and presented a couple of different, well, actually, I'm not sure how many, it was quite a few different articles, and sort of pretended to be somebody else. And it's caused quite a controversy around Indonesian integrity and ethics, which is quite unfair because I know, having seen how much passion and integrity there is in Indonesia, that it's not a reflection of Indonesia as a whole, but it just shows that one or two bad actors, one or two people doing something like this can really have a bad impact on the reputation of Indonesian research as a whole. And it's something that we need to really help with. But it's not just in Indonesia. These other two examples, data integrity concerns flagged in 130 women's health papers, all by one co-author, not somebody from Indonesia. Quality of scientific papers questioned as academics overwhelmed by the millions published. There are so many examples of research ethics and integrity issues. A lot of it is being caused by the pressure to publish on researchers. You know, you must publish this many papers or else, you know, your job is at stake. There's lots of different reasons. But we can help you to understand where the lines are and how to avoid these types of problems. Next slide, please. I think it's helpful to understand that there's a spectrum of research integrity and ethics issues. So the green here is, these are errors, these are like honest mistakes and unintentional misconduct that people may not realize they've done. For example, if there are authorship disputes, somebody thought that a paper should be submitted to one journal and then the two co-authors didn't discuss, and then it got submitted to two journals, for example. Text recycling and redundant publication, you know, things being reused and just not being noticed if it's been copied and pasted, inadequate anonymization, affiliate misrepresentation. There's a whole range of things that can go wrong, but can be picked up by just some pure, simple checklists around checking, making sure that the paper gets looked at by somebody independent from the paper before it goes into the submission system. Inappropriate citations and poor attribution. Again, some of these are education situations. It's just about making sure that you know how it works or asking for help if you're not sure. And then use of generative AI tools is actually there on that green side, because a lot of people are using AI and then not declaring it. And that comes across as misconduct, because most journals now expect you to declare that you've used some AI tools. So it's about misunderstanding what's expected of you, misunderstanding how the publishers are checking for AI usage, and those things can be avoided, and they're kind of almost silly mistakes that you can avoid. In the middle, in the yellow, this is like a grey area where it could be a mistake or it could be somebody deliberately trying to do something that they shouldn't. So gift or ghost authorship is a really good example. Sometimes people feel it's very nice to offer the senior professor an authorship on the paper, even if he or she hasn't written any of the paper or really contributed to it, which you shouldn't really do, for example. It should only be those people who have directly contributed to writing that paper or doing that research that should be co-authored on that paper. Peer review manipulation, if you can make sure that good people that you know and know you can review your paper if it's your journal, those types of things can be a grey area. Obviously, we all want to make sure that the paper is reviewed well. So I think plagiarism is another one where you can inadvertently plagiarize a paper by taking something that belonged to somebody else in terms of an image or a text, and not realizing that you needed to assign attributes where it was actually originally published. And then on the red side is the deliberate misconduct, where there's no real way of faking data accidentally. If you've accidentally done that, I'm not sure how. So faking data, paper mills or organized cartels are something we're seeing a lot more of now. Buying and selling of authorship, somebody asking someone else to write the paper for them. Identity theft, guest authors. If you don't include any funding sources in there that might be a competing interest, for example. So there's a lot there that's going on. But as I say, a lot of the green and the yellow is around just a lack of understanding about how you can do some of these things in a way that isn't going to cause trouble. But in a lot of international publications, particularly those Q1, Q2 Scopus journals that you may be aiming for, if there's any sign of any type of misconduct, then it's a straight desk reject. And so it's really important to make sure that you're not falling at the hurdle of research integrity. Next slide, please. And in terms of AI, we've seen a real change in the way that those research integrity and ethics cases have evolved. So you'll see from 2017, a lot of those were more around, missing attributions, plagiarism, authorship disputes. Now, with the use of LLMs, it's a lot more likely that there's going to be something where it's AI-based, written by AI or it's compromised, or there's lots of collaborative efforts across different places, citation manipulation, generated images, lots of different problems. So really we've seen such a huge rise in that. And so as publishers, we're equally trying to develop tools and checking methods as quickly as we can. One of the questions people ask me every time I give a talk like this is, what AI checking tool is Taylor & Francis using? You know, how are you checking, and what percentage AI use can I get away with? Unfortunately, it isn't possible to use one tool, because you will likely get false positives, and you can't just say it's this amount is okay. What you need to be really careful of is, if you're putting your research into an AI tool, it will get sucked into that LLM database, and that will potentially, very likely, then cause some sort of red flag with an AI checking tool. So Taylor & Francis is using a range of different tools to check for images, to check for citations and references, to check for tortured phrases or any kind of red flags around language. So we have a very sophisticated set of tools. It's not just one tool. But what can you do? So next slide, please. So Taylor & Francis is suggesting that authors using AI need to be really transparent about any usage. So Taylor & Francis supports the responsible use of generative AI tools, those that respect high standards of data security. So I wouldn't use a free tool, for example, because something like ChatGPT, there's no ring fence around your data. So if you put your research data into it, it just gets absorbed into that LLM training database. So be aware of what that LLM tool is doing with your data. But we are happy for you to use it for language improvement, idea generation and idea exploration, interactive online searching, where LLMs can really enhance search engines and make you more efficient, literature classification and coding assistance. But any time you use AI in your gathering of data or any of the aspects of your paper, please declare that you're using AI tools and what AI tools you're using. It's better to be declarative and say, this is what I've used, so that if there are any questions, it's clear that you've already said, I've actually used an AI tool for language polishing or to idea generate. The website there is the full AI policy, which is updating all the time. But the key thing is that AI can't be an author on your paper. You can't get AI to actually write the paper for you, because it won't be your own work. AI can't take responsibility for any problems with the paper. So it's really important that even with language polishing, you get somebody else to have a look through it or reread it yourself and make sure that you're happy with anything that's been changed, the tone, the language. Next slide, please. So what can you do as journal managers? I'd really recommend that you institute your own AI policy for submissions and make it clear to any authors submitting to your journals what you will and won't accept, and how they're allowed to use AI if they're writing for your journals. Ask authors to declare any use of AI tools in the creation of their research paper. I mentioned our VeriCarve preprint archive. You could encourage authors to create a verified preprint before they submit, which allows you to use Taylor & Francis preprint server to actually make sure the verification is done and there's trust markers are in place. Make sure that you and your editorial boards understand the risks of AI that I mentioned. Ensure you have a rigorous peer review process in place. Want to make sure that the peer review is being done independently. And think about your data policies. So data policy best practice should ask authors to declare any conflict of interest statements or any funding that is related to the article, so that you're being really clear about that. Okay, next slide, please. if you do have questions, as I'm sure there will be about AI, please make a note and get ready to ask me at the end. I'm happy to go back and talk about AI a bit more. I'm going to talk about Indonesia in this sort of scope of the evolving landscape of international scholarly publishing now. Next slide, please. One of the fascinating things for me about starting to work with Indonesia is seeing how much growth there has been in Indonesian publication output over the last 10 years. If you look at this slide, in 2016, only around 20,000 articles were being published by Indonesian scholars. And in 2023, that number was 156,000 articles. It's absolutely huge. And that's really captured the attention of a lot of big publishers like Taylor & Francis, because it shows just how much fantastic research there is coming from Indonesian scholars. That number's gone down a little bit. 2025, it was 141,000. I think that number's showing that there's a shift between quantity, like let's get lots and lots of articles published, and a shift in focus to move towards scopus publications and trying to really publish quality articles as well. Next slide, please. I think this slide's really exciting as well because it shows that Indonesia, in terms of publishing output across Asia Pacific, is number 2 in all of the Asia Pacific region. It beats Australia, it beats Japan, it beats Korea. The only country that beats Indonesia in Asia Pacific in terms of numbers of articles is China. And China is a publishing powerhouse. So it's the second highest number of articles published in all of Asia Pacific. So again, that's a really exciting fact and something that I think Indonesia should be really proud of. Next slide, please. And another fact about Indonesia is 85% of all the published articles in 2025 were open access articles. Again, no other country that I can think of has anything like this percentage of open access versus articles that are published in subscription journals. So the orange and the green bars there, all open access. The orange is in fully open access journals and the green is in journals where it's optional to publish open access. They also have subscription journal articles as well. So there's a lot of really exciting things to say about the Indonesian publication output. Next slide, please. This is the top 10 Indonesian institutions by research output. Hopefully you'll recognize some of those institutions there. This is in 2025. And actually, again, these are really large numbers. A lot of institutions around Asia Pacific are not publishing anything like as many articles as this, and certainly not open access. Next slide, please. And then these are the top subjects that Indonesian universities are publishing. So I don't know if this is familiar to you for your own universities, but the top 5 subjects by publication: commerce, management and tourism, education, IT and computing, biomedical and clinical sciences, and engineering. So this is just 2025. All of these numbers so far are talking about all publications from Indonesia, so not articles in English, but all publications. Next slide, please. This just shows the countries in which Indonesian scholars are most likely to collaborate with. So again, I don't know if this is familiar to you in your own context with your journals or your own universities, but Indonesians are most likely to collaborate with each other. So in the largest possible way, most Indonesians are actually working with each other. And then the next is Malaysia, and then Japan, US, UK. I think this is an interesting one for internationalization because it shows that there is a a slight tendency towards being quite insular in terms of talking to each other and not so much talking to other international researchers. And this is something I think can really affect the quality of the publications that you're producing. The more that you can collaborate with researchers outside of Indonesia, the more that you can enter into a conversation with those researchers. And again, going back to access, I think if you can have more access to those publications from other researchers, you can have more opportunity to collaborate with them as well. So I think this is quite striking. So I think, and I know that one of the KPIs for many of your universities is around international collaboration. So I think this is quite an important point to make. Next slide, please. So most of the previous slides are around English and Bahasa Indonesia content. This is just talking about English, pure English publications now. English articles are around 20,000 of that 140, actually it should be 141,000, sorry. So only around 14% of articles published in 2025 were published in English, which means around 86% of research published from Indonesian scholars is unavailable to non-Indonesian speakers. So if you're publishing in local language, unless those international researchers are speaking Bahasa Indonesian, then they're not going to be able to have access to the publications that you're producing. So it's a lot of publications, but a lot of it is locked, is hidden from the international communities that you want to collaborate with. You want people to be able to learn from what you're writing about, learn from your research, and be able to share their ideas with you. But they can't do that if that research is locked in local language. Taylor & Francis is one of the top 3 publishers of English content from Indonesia. And we're very, very keen to become the #1 publisher for you. We want to work with you to really help you to improve the number of publications in English, to improve the quality of your journals, to improve the understanding and the education to stop you getting rejected in big numbers. And that's something we're very passionate about, and I'm very keen to talk to you about that today. And I know my colleagues, Ardi and Vidya, who are going to be outside at the Taylor & Francis stand, would be very happy to talk to you about how we can work with your institutions and your libraries to support that access piece that will allow you to really have more visibility of what else is being published in your research area. Okay, next slide, please. So, the last segment of my talk, you all seem to be remarkably still awake, well done. The last segment of my talk is about opportunities for Indonesian scholars. So I've just mentioned how important I think it is to really work together to increase the output in English, to increase the quality, to increase the collaboration. Taylor & Francis in April came to Jakarta, and we invited a number of higher education institution leaders from Indonesia to come and talk to us and have a focus group, and we asked the questions: what are the challenges, what are the barriers, and what are the opportunities for you in terms of publication output? So next slide, please. This is just a short summary of some of the challenges and the needs that your higher education leaders told us about the Indonesian higher education market. So 130,000 articles in Bahasa Indonesian are hidden. I've mentioned that already, that they're not available to an international audience. There are research integrity and ethics challenges. As I said, a lot of that is just a lack of understanding or education around what are the international standards around how do you avoid these problems, particularly around AI. The lack of international research networks, how do we reach to the right international collaborators so that we can have shared research, shared publications with other researchers? That quantity to quality shift, the government has asked you now to change from publishing lots to publishing lots of really good quality Q1 and Q2 Scopus Index journal articles. But it's not easy, and we recognise that there's some problems with that. Limited access. As I mentioned, if you don't have access to high quality research that has come before in your subject areas, it's very difficult to build on that with your own research and then have that be published in Q1 and Q2 journals. That access is so, so important. And I think that unless that focus changes from just publishing to accessing the right content first, then I think that's going to be quite difficult. So that limited access, I think, is something we're really keen to help you with. The high rejection rates, I'm sure many of you are already prepared to ask me, why do I keep getting rejected in Taylor and Francis journals or in other international publisher? And we can help you with that. But there's an education piece and there's an access piece that needs to come first. The rejection rates will keep coming if the research integrity, the understanding about methodological expectations, about how to write for an international audience, those things all need to be in place for you to get more acceptances. There's no point in me saying, let's just drive more submissions if we're not getting that quality piece right. The capacity gap, it was given to us as feedback that there's a capacity gap in terms of how do we research effectively, how do we write for an international market, and again, we can help with that education. Time constraints. Our understanding is that there's a lot of time pressures in terms of getting the research funding, getting it published, doing the research and then getting it published. There are English language barriers. The cost of open access charges are very high, which we hear. And then how do we actually have impact with the research that we're publishing, that downstream research knowledge into accessible, actionable policy tools? So those were the main challenges that we heard. And then what does the community want? So internationalizing content that's not currently visible or discoverable, guidance, training and support for researchers, solutions for researcher matching, so that international collaboration, how can we match researchers so that they can work together, training on quality marker improvement, a funnel for indexed journals and journal development support, access scaling opportunities and improvements for remote access. So again, how can we give you access on a big scale that is affordable for the Indonesian market? Pre-submission workshops and more detailed feedback. So again, education and training. Training on research ecosystems, including for librarians. If we can train the research officers and the librarians about some of these barriers, then that will really help. Fast track options, journal feeder programs and journal hosting. So how can we help to support your journals? Because there are so many. One thing I didn't mention, as a fact about Indonesia, is that Indonesian journals in the database of open access journals, the DOAJ, you have 2,400 over open access journals indexed already in the DOAJ. That's more than any other country in the world. So there are more DOAJ indexed open access journals coming from Indonesia than any other country. US, China, nobody beats Indonesia. There are so many open access journals being published by Indonesia. It's a really astonishing fact. And again, something you should be really proud of. But I think from the feedback I've had from talking to senior colleagues at universities is that many of your journals are run by a particular faculty, or one professor is responsible for trying to make that journal visible to an international audience. It's very difficult. And I think there are so many things that we could do to support the development of your journals to allow them to reach their maximum visibility internationally. It might mean consolidating some of those journals. So instead of having 100 journals, you have 25 really good journals that are, you're putting more resource into smaller numbers of journals, and we're helping with dedicated resource on the ground to support you. But having so many journals is it's a big thing to be proud of, but it's also a big resource drain, I think. So I think that's something we're really interested to talk to you about. So the bottom thing there is an all-in package, hosted, not co-publishing, and offering service fees, not APCs. So one of the things that came out of the focus group was, could we, as a big publisher, work with Indonesia as a whole, but with the ministry, to actually create a package of offering, a package of service to support you as a publisher, as your publishing partner, to help with all of these problems. And the next slide please, is what we're calling the layered solution that we've come up with. So what we'd like to do is work with your ministry, work with your leaders to put together an offer that covers all of these things, and makes it affordable for all of the universities in Indonesia to have a dedicated resource. So Taylor & Francis would use that package to have dedicated staff here in Indonesia who could help to deliver the training, deliver the support. So this first piece, access. Absolutely fundamental that you need access to journals and ebooks in order to be able to improve the quality of the research output. Collecting the charges for open access together so that it's more affordable is something that we can work with the ministry, so that that money is spent wisely to get you the maximum publication output. We're developing an international collaboration tool that will allow you to be allow us to match make your researchers with Taylor & Francis authors, so that you can find people to collaborate with internationally within the Taylor & Francis community, and we'll put you in touch with those people so that you can actually, know who to speak to or who to collaborate with. There are lots of Malaysian, Japanese, Chinese, Australian researchers who would be very pleased to work with you. We'll help you find them. And then hosting. I mentioned that Taylor & Francis has 80% of its journals are Q1 and Q2 Scopus Index journals. We will help you to develop your journals to be that quality. But as it stands, we can't co-publish with you at that level at which some of the journals are. They're not ready yet. But we want to help you incubate your journals and move them forward. And we can start with hosting your journals on the Taylor & Francis website. Hosted, not published. We can support you as journal managers in how do we make the journals better? How can we support you with training, advice, best practice to help improve the quality? And then in the future, you can become a co-published Taylor & Francis journal. But we don't want to just say, no, we don't want your journal. What we want to do is help you and support you and give you some of that best practice and guidance. We can do that for you with training, research integrity and ethics, validation and compliance, so that you're not falling foul to some of those problems. And that journal development program, we can actually train you as journal managers to make sure that your journals are going to be improved and more high quality in terms of international collaboration. And as I say, our ultimate goal is that those journals can be co-published with Taylor & Francis in the long term, and will help you to develop and move towards that goal. But that's how we can be a #1 publishing partner for Indonesia, and we want to put all of this together as a package and a service, work with the ministry and make sure that you have the access, you have the training and the education. We can help you co-host your journals. We can even support the Indonesia Bahasa journals and put translations of that English, of the English onto our website, so that instead of being locked, that content is then internationally visible to a wider audience. So I think there's some really exciting things that we can do together. But please do help us to work with us to see if we can do that. But to start with, we have Ardi and Vidya at the back at the outside who are able to talk to you about some of the packages. If you want to start now, you can talk to them about some of the packages we have for that access piece to start that journey as well. The next slide is the last one before you get to questions. This is just an example of some of the training courses that we can run for you as journal managers. And some of these are around how do you make the journals better. So making the most of the editorial board. How can you get the editorial board to work for you and be really effective in helping to drive, promote, and ensure quality? How do you help authors find and choose your journal in terms of promotion, in terms of having the right aims and scopes in place? Understanding the indexing and how the impact factor and the site score works. We can talk to you about how do you actually drive citations to your own journals as well. Okay, I think last slide. Brilliant. So thank you so much for staying awake and listening to me. We have plenty of time, I believe, so please do ask all your questions. Or if you don't want to ask live, you can always come out and speak to us. We're going to be here until the end of, mostly, I think, until the end of tomorrow, so there's plenty of time. Thank you.
Great, thank you, Katie, for the insights, which are very valuable, and I think it's an eye-opener for many of us, I think, for me personally, of some of the facts that it's spiriting but also dispiriting in a ways. But I'm open for, I'm now opening for the discussion, question and answer. Saya membuka tanya jawab atau respons atau komentar, feedback untuk Katie maupun apa yang dia paparkan, ataupun yang lain, atau timnya, atau juga dalam kapasitas saya tentu forum LPPM PTN BKS PTN Barat. Silakan, mungkin saya buka untuk 3 penanya pertama dulu. Nanti tolong disebutkan nama dan asal institusi dan nama jurnalnya yang dikelola apa kalau ada. Ya, 1, 2 di sana. Ada lagi, 1 lagi? 3. Ya, silakan Ibu yang di sana.
Thank you very much. Allow me to introduce myself. My name is Maya Puspitasari. I'm from Universitas Terbuka. Thank you for your insightful presentation, Katie. As someone who frequently submitted to Taylor and Francis and got rejected, I can assure you that I have kind of exciting experience in submitting to Taylor and Francis because it has free format submission. So today, even though I got rejected from the certain journal, but then a few days later I will get kind of an offer to transfer that to another journal, which is kind of exciting. So it makes me okay. I should motivate myself to submit to somewhere else. There are 2 questions that I would like to ask. First, you mentioned that there are some Indonesian scholars and journals that have joined the Taylor and Francis. So how can we join in Taylor and Francis? And is there any probably a quality standard to join in Taylor and Francis? And speaking of the article publishing charges, I think there's some kind of free submission or free APC, but then you mentioned about Cogen, and then I think Cogen is quite high cost of APC. So is there any quality standard of your Taylor and Francis, or is it based on the journal itself to decide whether it has free access and then free APC or not? And then the second one is the strict of guidelines, because I think there are certain journal that you can publish within 6 months, for example, but then I submit to a journal in Taylor and Branson, and it takes me 2 years, and then it's still reviewing. So is there any guidelines for the journal itself to have the standard? Thank you very much.
Thank you for 3 really excellent questions to kick us off. So I've written some notes here, but please do correct me if I've not fully covered everything. So great to hear that the journal transfer program is working. So we have, with many of our journals, we have something called a journal transfer program. So the idea is that if you are rejected from a particular journal, often it's because maybe the fit and the topic isn't quite right for that journal, or they're not so interested in content from Asia, for example, if it's a very British or very American journal. And behind the scenes, we have a program where we will re-offer and say, you didn't get into this journal, but maybe you'd be interested in considering these journals. So I do recommend that you take that up, because it means that we don't think there's anything wrong with your article. If we thought there was potentially some issue with it, we would reject it fully. But if we're offering you a transfer, it means we don't think this is quite right for this journal, but we think there's a place for that to be published at Taylor & Francis. So it is quite exciting. So I would recommend you try and take up that transfer offer. In terms of journals joining Taylor & Francis, as I mentioned, we're keen to create a journal hosting service for Indonesian journals, where there will still be a barrier to entry, because we will still need to assess the journal quality and make sure that the peer review is rigorous, that the ethics and integrity issues are not there, that the journal is publishing regularly, that we're happy with the quality. But we want to be able to offer hosting for the journals, not necessarily co-publishing, because co-publishing requires a huge amount of resource from Taylor & Francis, and we're currently focusing on those Q1 and Q2 journals. So what we would like to do is offer hosting, and then we can help to build those journals up with some support to be able to then in the future be co-published by Taylor & Francis. But with the hosting, you would get that support from us in terms of submission, in terms of best practice advice and guidance. That costs money, and we're trying to work with the government to put together an offer that will allow those CINTA index journals, the DOAJ index journals, the Scopus index journals that you publish to be hosted by Taylor & Francis, and we would have really good visibility then on our website. So it's a plan to help you, to give you a ladder to move your publication quality up. But I don't want to lie and say, oh yes, we'll publish all your journals, because we're not in a position to take on 2,500 journals which are not yet Scopus Q1, Q2 level. In terms of article publishing charges, it does vary depending on the different journals. We do sometimes have some waivers for authors, and it depends again on the journal. It might be that the journal is a new launch journal, in which case perhaps it's accepting all articles for free for now, and we'll put in an APC later. There's a whole range of things. But if your university works with Taylor & Francis to put some money into a pot, then it means that you can have access as researchers to APC charges that are at a good price across any of the Taylor & Francis journals. So we offer these services where some universities in Indonesia have, it looks free to the researcher because the library has put a pot of money into Taylor & Francis, and then you can publish in any of those journals until the money runs out. And that's a much better way of doing it for the researchers. Some universities even do a complete waiver for Q1 journals, maybe 75% for Q2 journals, 50% waiver for Q3 journals. Like, there are lots of ways you could do it. And if you're interested to talk to us about that, Ardi and Vidya, my colleagues who are at the back, did you want to wave to everybody? They're sitting at the back at the moment. It's Vidya and Ardi. Come and speak to us about that, because we can really help you to make sure that those APC charges are reduced and not as kind of difficult for you to access. So that's something we're really keen to do. And if we can work with the government as a whole to fund that as a big package, then hopefully it will really make it easier for you. And then the final question, I think, was about the length of time that a journal can be sitting with your paper. 2 years is a long time. I am sorry about that. Perhaps come and speak to me later and I can try and nudge somebody and find out what's going on with your article. On our website, each journal has information in the metrics section about how long, on average, the wait time is. A bit like going on a ride at, a theme park. We'll say how long, on average, is the wait time for this particular journal. And so if you are looking at a Q1 emptying, the wait to be. But yes, 2 years is too long. We need to help you with that. One of the reasons I think sometimes that articles can sit in review for a long time, and it's something as academic partnerships, many of our journals don't have enough Indonesian scholars on the editorial boards or as associate editors or section editors. We're really keen to have more of you on our editorial boards. So if you're interested in working with us and working with one of our journals, come and speak to me, because we have a team whose job is to place researchers on editorial boards across our journals. The more journals that have an Indonesian high-quality researcher on the editorial board, the better, because then if the editor doesn't know that university or doesn't know the context of that particular research article, they can reach out to their Indonesian editor, representative or editorial board member, and they can ask them for suggestions of reviewers. They can say, is this a good quality university? Is this an interesting article? If we don't have that representation, we can't do that. So please do work with us. The more editorial board members we have from Indonesian universities, the better. But that's the way to look, is on our website, on the metrics, have a look at the article processing time. It will tell you how quickly something should be responded to. Did that answer all of your questions? Wonderful. Thank you.
Terima kasih Bu Maya. Selanjutnya Ibu yang di sana tadi, baru nanti Ibu yang di sebelah sana.
Thank you for the opportunities. My name is Hastin Ernawati. I'm from Universitas of Palangkaraya. Okay, our university is currently a Taylor and Francis institutional subscriber, and we are committed to increasing our international research publications, strengthen the quality of our academic journals, and supporting our faculty members in achieving promotion to full professor. However, one of the major challenges we face is the high article processing charge, or APCs, for publishing in reputable international journals. With continuous strengthening of the US dollar against our local currency, APCs have become increasingly difficult to afford, particularly for universities outside the major metropolitan areas, where research funding is often more limited. My question is, does Taylor and Francis offer any institutional partnership schemes, such as APC discount for subscribing institution, or maybe transformative publishing agreement, maybe, or other collaborative program to support universities like ours? In addition, would Taylor and Francis be willing to provide subject-specific mentoring programs, including journal selection guidance, or pre-submission manuscript review, and manuscript development workshop to help improve our researchers' publication success? And maybe, in your opinion, what would be the most effective model of collaboration between Taylor and Francis and universities, such as Universitas Palangkaraya, to achieve these goals? Thank you. Thank you.
Sorry, wonderful. And thank you again for some really thoughtful questions. And we're very excited that you're here, and thank you for being an institutional subscriber with us. When you were asking, do we have packages and discounts, my esteemed colleague Ardi at the back went, yes, we do. Yes, we're really committed to trying to help you stretch those budgets to be able to get you to the places that you want to get to in terms of increased submissions, increased publications, quality output. We're very, very committed to helping you. We know that budgets are stretched. We know it's difficult. But talk to Ardi, who is just at the back there, nodding and waving, and he will help you to try and make sure that you can reach the kind of goals and missions for your university. In terms of the best way, as I said, my view is either we need to work with the ministry to try and make sure the budgets for publication are stretched across a number of universities to really maximize what you can do and the discounts we can offer, because we want to make sure access to publication, access to the research that you need, all of that is handled across Indonesia, ideally. If not at a ministry level, then I think as a consortia of universities, that's something we can work with you on to negotiate a special deal, a special price, so that we can offer all of this for you. What we don't want to do is make it too difficult. We want to try and help with understanding that their budgets are not vast, and the US dollar is strengthening against the Indonesia rupiah. So let us work with you as a partner and try and help you. And my colleagues, I work in the editorial kind of content piece, but my colleagues at the back are really happy to help you with that. In terms of the training and the subject-specific workshops, yes, again, we'd really like to be able to do that. Resources limited in terms of the number of people that we have in Indonesia on a content side who can help. But again, if we can do some sort of large package with Indonesian government or as a consortia, then I can justify employing somebody here in Indonesia whose full focus will be going to your university, other universities, to help do that training in person at a subject-specific level. They can do pre-submission workshops. They can help you use the tools that we have, like Verichive. So it needs to start with, a spend of some of that budget to help Taylor & Francis work with you to deliver that training and support that you really need to help elevate that. And we would like to have somebody who's Indonesian, so you don't have to listen to me speak English. I can support, but if we have somebody who is already a Bahasa Indonesia speaker, then that will really, I think, elevate the training that we can offer. But I can only get that resource for you if you help to work together to, give us some money to put access, the discount for the open access charges, all of that together. So yes, we're very keen to help you with that, the pre-submission workshops. At the moment, we can offer webinars and online training. We may be able to offer some in-person training, but rather than do it one by one, it would be much better to be able to offer some bigger opportunities, and we can have conferences and workshops for more of your universities. Thank you for your questions.
Oke, terima kasih Bu Hastin. Yang ketiga tadi dari deretan sini. Ya.
Hello, Kathy, and thank you for the time. It's such an honor to have you here because I'm kind of admire the Taylor and Francis peer review process in your journals. And actually my questions have been answered with the
Boleh
previous.
nama?
Sorry. My name is Husna Tiara Putri. I'm from ITERA as the editor-in-chief Jurnal Perencanaan dan Pengembangan Kebijakan that have been accredited in Singapore. So I'm interested to discuss more about your last presentation, actually for the use of the AI in the article and the manuscript. So as the editor, we are often face the condition that the author is suspected by us is making the manuscript generated by the AI. But actually when we confirm to the author that he can make a statement that he doesn't do that. So he just make it by himself. But actually we have something that actually especially for the manuscript that written in English. So it's very hard to identify if it is genuine from him or just generated by AI. So as the publisher, international publisher, can you give me or another editor here as staff how to handle this condition? And the second, I want to ask, maybe you can give us some tips about how to attract the international writer, an international author, to publish with the local journal or in the Indonesian developing journal like my journal or another. Thank you very much from me.
Thank you. I'm loving these questions. They're really thoughtful questions. Thank you. Okay, so to start with about AI use, it's really hard. It's really, really hard. Even as an international publisher, you know, it's something that's changing all the time. The AI tools are getting better and cleverer. People are using them in better and more clever ways. It's really, really hard. So give yourself, you know, don't be too hard on yourself as the editors and journal managers. It's not something that's straightforward. However, we are lucky because we're so large as an international publisher with tools online that will allow you to check for tools online that will allow you to check for tortured phrases. So we'll give you a list of all the sort of problem phrases that appear when someone uses AI to just do a pure translation of an article as well, or get the article to be rewritten. So there's a number of different tools online that you can use that will help with some of that. But I think if you don't know for sure that something's problematic, then you have to make a decision as a journal what you're comfortable with. Many of our journals will reject something if there's any hint of problem. They will just say, oh, we feel uncertain and so we won't publish it because we don't need journal articles so much that we want to risk reputation damage by publishing something we don't think is right. So if there's a kind of orange flag even, or a red flag for a journal, then most of our journals at Q1, Q2 level will just, you know, reject because they're not sure. So it's something you need to decide. Do you need that content so much that you're willing to overlook the question marks that you have? Or do you want to just reject that article, knowing that you might reject something that is actually not AI written, but something must make you wonder. So you know, if you're not sure and something's making you wonder, you know, you need to decide, do you need that content because you want to get the journal out, or do you think it's better to be wrong but not publish something that isn't the right standard? So it's how much time you have as well. So you might want to spend more time looking at that content in more detail, or you might just think it's not worth it, I'm just going to reject that. But look at the author. Are they from a reputable institution? Is it somebody that's published with you before? Do you recognize their own previous work? Is there anything about that particular paper that makes you more confident that it's a good paper? Who are they citing? Who are they referencing? Is that good content as well? So I think you, as journal managers and editors, have good instincts. So I do think trust some of your instincts, but yeah, it's really not easy. We're lucky because we have a whole range of tools. We have AI tools that can check things like image manipulation, check the tortured phrases, check the citations. We also have open research, open data policies with a lot of our journals. And this is something to consider, actually. If you ask for authors to submit their data, that can be a deterrent for somebody who might be faking their data. You can say, we want you to submit the data if you're asked, or just submit the data with the submission of the article, because then that data will allow you to, again, look at, is this quality paper? Because is it something that can be replicated? Is it something that's kind of verifiable as well? So there's lots of things you can do, but yeah, not straightforward. Okay, so that's that. And then how to attract. I could give you a whole hour's talk on how to attract. I think one of the main things, and I put it at the top of my list of training courses available for journal managers, is about how to maximize your editorial board. Your editorial board should reflect the journal as you want it to be. So if you would like to have submissions from a wide range of countries, then make sure that the editorial board includes those researchers from a range of countries around the world. If you really would like to have a particular type of subject areas, topics for your journal, again, think about your editorial board. Do you have somebody who can help to act as an ambassador for your journal within that subject field? And invite those people to be on your editorial board. It might be that they're not going to say yes to begin with. You need to find the right people. But if you want to have those submissions, it's really good to have an editorial board that reflects that. If you're only working with other Indonesians, you're not going to attract submissions from outside of Indonesia. So you need to think about that as much as possible. So that's one thing. The other thing that's kind of a big thing is you can actually go out and commission papers. You can go out and invite people to submit to your journal. If there's somebody that you think is doing something really interesting, then you can ask them, would they be interested in submitting a special issue, or would they be interested in putting some content into your journal? And then thirdly is about your own promotion of your journals. How are you promoting the journal outside of Indonesia? How are you making sure the journal is visible? Are you just putting information on your own website and expecting people to find it? Or are you making sure that it's indexed as many places as possible, that you're going to conferences and promoting, that you're perhaps using social media? There are lots of things that you can do to help make sure the journal is visible outside of your own country as well. But that's certainly just 3 quick ideas that would help. But come and talk to me at the lunch break or something. I'm happy to talk to you some more.
All right, thank you so much, Kathy, for that response dari Bu Husna. Kita ada waktu kira-kira setengah jam lagi, so we have more or less half an hour for another round for discussion. Jadi 3 penanya lagi mungkin ada? 1 dari sana, ada lagi? 2? Ada? 3. Kenapa penanyanya perempuan semua ya? Luar biasa, all the women, yeah. So, silakan tadi dari ibu yang di sana.
Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity. I am Neti Yuliana from Jurnal Teknologi dan Industri Hasil Pertanian from University of Lampung. Actually, my question is related with the one of the slide you present today regarding the outcome of from Indonesian Focus Discussion Group. Point number 4, outcome from Indonesia Focus Group 21 April 2026, point number 4, regarding the journal development support. Yeah. We recently applied for the Scopus indexing and received feedback that one of the area requiring improvement is the international composition of our editorial boards. In this regard, may I ask whether your publishing house offer any assistance or mentoring or partnership program to help a local journal like our journal in this university? For strengthen editorial boards and improve their readiness for international indexing. Thank you.
Thank you again for the question. Yes, it's a really common reason for being rejected for indexing is around that international composition. They're talking about the editorial board, but it normally reflects on the composition of the articles being published in the journal as well, because as I mentioned in the previous answer, if your editorial board is not international, normally it means that the content that you're attracting to the journal is also not very international, because when authors are looking at which journal to submit to, one of the things they're often looking at is who's on the editorial board, will my article fit in with the other content being published, and if it's 96% Indonesian content, then maybe somebody from France or Germany doesn't feel like their article will fit. So it's a little bit, in English we would say a chicken and egg, which of these comes first. But the editorial board is a really good indicator to authors that you're interested in international submissions. And it can be hard to get the right people onto your editorial board. But to begin with, if you're meeting people at a conference or you're collaborating yourself as an individual researcher with other scholars in your field, either if it's online or if you meet people, try and make those networks, make those connections yourselves, and say to them, I'm doing this journal, I'd really be so grateful if you would come onto the editorial board and help us to internationalize our journal. I think most international researchers are really supportive, and I think if you can make those personal connections, that's a really good way of starting. But yes, Taylor and Francis can help. We are trying to internationalize some of our editorial boards the other way. Many of our editorial boards are very UK, very US centric. So we have some journals which are almost exclusively UK academics, and we want to make them have more internationalization on their editorial boards as well, because we want to have a broader accessibility for our journals. So we have a huge number of high-level academics that we can recommend for your journals if we're working together. So it's something we're really keen to help. As part of the journal development program that I mentioned in that slide, we can work with you to do that, but it needs to be part of a service that we're providing. We're a commercial publisher. We can't just give away all of the services for free. We do need to have it be part of a kind of knowledge services package that we're offering. So I think if we can work together in a big way, either as a consortia or as an Indonesian government package, then we can have somebody whose job is to help you and support you to develop those journals. We can give you that best practice, how to do it. We have, actually I don't know how many, but somewhere in the region of 300 or 400 publishers within Taylor & Francis whose job is to manage a list of around 20 to 30 journals. And their job is to work with editors, journal managers to do exactly that. So the training that I mentioned is the training that we actually provide to our editors that we publish all the time. It's the day job of our publishers. So we have that training available. And my suggestion is that we work with you to deliver that training to the journal managers and provide that support. So editorial boards can be internationalized, the content can be internationalized. We can help you collaborate more with international scholars around the world through the Taylor & Francis networks, which will really help to improve your chances of being indexed in Scopus. We can also help support you with your index application because we have a very close relationship with Scopus. Because we have more than 90% of our journals are Scopus indexed, we work with them very closely. So again, as a large publisher, that's something we can support with. But I'm sorry to hear that you didn't get your journal index, and I wish you the best of luck for the next time.
Oke, berikutnya mungkin tadi dari sini, ya.
Okay, thank you for the opportunity. My name is Rani Yusilia from University of Lampung and from Agrotropika Journal. Maybe it's same like Bu Neti before that our journal got rejected by Scopus Index, and then it's a little bit same reason but have a different. It's about the academic standing of the senior leadership. So in our journal, we use our senior and then as editor-in-chief on the website, but maybe the Scopus Index is not good. So the Scopus suggests that we should change. Can we use another, I mean that not Indonesian people as editorial-in-chief, or we should use another senior with the highest index for the academic standing for editor-in-chief? It's the first question. And also that Scopus suggests us to not be an international journal but regional journal, because the language that we use is in Indonesian, mostly in Indonesian, or only several that using English, and the Scopus suggests that we should change from international journal to be regional journal. So what do you think about to be regional journal? Is it better if we try to be international journal or follow the suggestion from the Scopus? And then the last one, it's from my experience. Last year, I wrote a book chapter in Apple Academic Press, and until now, my book chapter is still not published. Only in April, just signed the complete AI declaration. It's already 1 year. What do you think about that? How much the book from Taylor and Francis that can publish for the book chapter? Thank you.
Okay, thank you again for the questions. I'll start with the first one about the rejection by Scopus and the academic standing. So one of the things they do look at is the citation score or H index for the editorial, the senior editorial roles. And although many of the seniors that you might refer to will be very senior, perhaps they may not be as active as researchers now because they've become rector or vice chancellor or provost or something. Because they're doing an administrative role, they maybe don't have as high a citation index as they used to have in their earlier days. And so I understand that the hierarchical nature of a lot of Indonesia and other parts of Asia means that it's very good to have somebody at that senior level on the board. For an academic research journal, the most important thing is that you have editors who are at the right academic standing in terms of their citation index, their research quality, they need to be active. So that's one thing to consider. How active are the editors that you have in those roles? You know, it needs to be a balance between those people who are actually going to be active, going out and helping to promote the journal, from the question earlier about how do you promote the journal, and, you know, very good networks in terms of going out and meeting lots of people, and somebody who's a name, you know, who's just going to be there to make the journal look more prestigious. So I think that's something that needs a bit of thinking about, but that could be one of the answers if it's somebody senior who perhaps isn't as active as a researcher. You can invite editors or section editors or associate editors from outside of Indonesia to be part of the journal, but make sure that if you're inviting them that you really have an intention to make the journal more international and that they have a clear role. If you're just inviting them to make it look like you're an international journal, then they will see through that, and also it won't help you with Scopus. So you need to really think about producing a journal development plan. So your question about should it be a regional journal or an international journal, the only person who can really answer that is you, because it's your journal that you're developing on behalf of your university or your faculty. What is the reason the journal exists? Why do you want to have a journal? Do you want to have a journal to talk to other Indonesian researchers, which is what a regional journal does? It's talking to your own internal research communities. Or is it something that you're using as a platform to spread the word or spread the research that you're producing to an international audience, which is what an international journal is supposed to do? So why did the journal start, and what's the intention, what's the mission of your journal? And as part of that journal development plan, then you can start to think about, if we want it to be an international journal, how do we get there? And how do you get there is by thinking about who in your field could be really good to include on the editorial board, who's going to be active, supportive of Indonesian research, somebody who's very familiar with the Asian context, for example, maybe somebody that you've collaborated with or you've worked with and you know is going to be a supporter of Indonesian content. Because if you just invite somebody from the US who has never been to Indonesia, doesn't publish about anything to do with Asia, they may accept and be on your editorial board and do nothing helpful. So it needs to be the right type of people, just rather than just ticking a box to say, we've invited 5 Americans to our board. So I think that journal development plan is something you can all work on for your journal, is what do you want to achieve with your journal and how can you make that happen? Come and talk to me individually. I'm really happy to speak to you a little bit about some of your individual problems, but generally it's about why is that journal there? I mentioned in my speech that perhaps in some places it would be good to work together in your university to merge some of your journals together so that you have fewer journals in a particular subject area which are working together to be more international, rather than, you know, each faculty having one journal that isn't very well resourced because you're all very busy academics. So there might be opportunities for you to, you know, merge some together and have fewer to focus on. The third question you asked was about book publishing. Apple Academic Press is a book publisher which has been distributed by Taylor & Francis rather than published by us. So we don't have responsibility for the way that the books are produced. So unfortunately, I can't answer exactly why your chapter hasn't been published, although Routledge and CRC Press, the 2 book imprints that we publish, it normally takes around 6 months for the book manuscript to be published once the manuscript has been received. So I don't know, perhaps Apple Academic Press has a slightly longer time because they're a smaller publisher. We're quite efficient because we're so large. To get 8,000 over books published every year, we have to be quite good processes. But if you come and speak to me and give me your name card after, maybe I can try and ask some questions internally about what's happened with your book on your book chapter. But if anyone does have questions about books, again, I'm really happy to help. We have a lot of opportunities for book publishing, and we have editors based in Asia who are really happy to help support with publishing. I know it's difficult to write a full book in English, but we do have ways that we can help you to know how to publish books as well. But come and speak to me and we can investigate that particular situation.
Ibu ya tadi, ya silakan.
Thank you for the chance. My name is Ferry Febrianti from Mathematics Department, Institut Teknologi Sumatera. Right now, I have confused about when we submit our journal to reputability journal, international journal. They use plagiarism checker for initial pass review. Is it Taylor and Francis also use that ways? And what is how a score for the plagiarism that can be accepted for initial pass review? And is it all of the reference less than 1%, or there is another criteria for that? And because we are the young researchers and we have a lot of English and proofread, so that is it Fleur and Franchise have recommendation for proofread tools that can be used for the free, that's all. Thank you.
I didn't quite catch the last bit. You mentioned about being young researchers and what tools? Proofreading tools. Okay.
Yes, thank you.
Okay. Plagiarism checks, a bit like AI checks. We have a number of tools that we use, and it's not just it's not like a one tool for everything. Because with plagiarism checks, again, as you mentioned with references and other things, if you just put everything through one plagiarism check, it can give you a false positive. It can say, oh, this is all plagiarized, and it isn't true. If it's if it's somebody who's very prolific and has written a lot, it can flag up a lot of self-citations, which have been correctly cited, but it can look as if there's a lot more. So it's not a very easy question to answer to say, oh, it's this percentage, because the way that we work is we will put everything through the tools, and then we will look at the results in a whole view, rather than just say anything below this percentage is okay, anything above this percentage is not okay. So it's a little bit more sophisticated than that. But yes, they do go through plagiarism checks. They do go through AI manipulation checks, data manipulation checks, image manipulation checks. There's a whole range of things that we check before something even goes to that desk review stage. So it's a lot of automation that happens before our editors start to look at things. So I'm afraid I can't give you a percentage, but I think you know yourself, if something's coming up as 85, 90%, copied material, then somebody's going to look at that in a more detail. But it generally doesn't mean that somebody will just automatically reject. They normally will look at the context a little bit more closely. I think the main thing in terms of advice for as an early career researcher is to ensure that you're very transparent about the reuse of any material. So if you've reused tables or images or data, even if it's from your own previously published work, make sure that you're citing yourself and saying this has been taken from my previously published work, because if then somebody's looking into it in more detail, they will be able to see that you've clearly been transparent about the reuse of material. The worst is that if you then get flagged as having a lot of duplicated content, and then somebody starts to do some checks and finds that you've reused quite a bit of material and actually you haven't given the correct citations or the correct references, and then, like I mentioned to somebody previously, if it's a red flag, then it can be rejected at that point, and it's something it can be avoided. In terms of proofreading tools, we have English polishing tools available. We have a paid-for service that does English polishing tools. But in our Cogent journals, we actually have a free English polishing service. So if you pay to publish with an APC on the Cogent journals, there is actually an inbuilt free English polishing service as part of those journals as well, because we recognise that's something we want to help, and because those are open access journals, we want to encourage people to use our English polishing services. So that's a free part of the Cogent OA journals already. But otherwise, I think if you are using an AI tool to do proofreading, as I mentioned in my previous talk, just be careful. Don't just put it into a free tool, all your research into a free tool, because it very much likely will be just absorbed into that LLM as training for other LLM outputs. And also, it can then be flagged as AI generated later, because it's something that's up in the cloud and is kind of reusable. So try and use a tool that has data protection in place. I hope that answers your question.
Oke, baik Bapak Ibu sekalian, sebetulnya kita masih ada 12 menit waktu, tapi saya serahkan apakah masih ada yang mau ditanyakan atau dikomentari, or perhaps Katie, if you have kind of like concluding remarks. Oh, there's actually one. So silakan Ibu, one more.
Bismillah, thank you Kathy. Nice speak. Okay, I'm Noviani. I'm from Chemistry Department from University of Lampung. Actually, I have been entrusted with managing a community engagement journal at the University of Lampung. Does Taylor and Francis also publish journal focuses on community engagement or community service? If so, are there any specific criteria or requirements for the article to publish? Thank you.
Thank you. So yes, we do. We publish pretty much every subject area across our 2,500 journals, so we will have journals in that area. I can't tell you what they are off the top of my head right now, but I'm happy to have a look at and give you some suggestions, or if you come and see me and give me your name card, I can follow up and send you a list. In fact, if anybody would like to have visibility of the journals that we have in your subject area, just give me your name card, give me the name of the topic or the subject area, and we're really happy to follow up and send you a list of suggested journals that would be helpful. We also have on our website something called the Journal Suggester tool, which allows you to just put in an abstract or some keywords from your topic, and it will use AI to suggest the best journals that would be the right fit for your article across all of our journals. So if you're not sure which Taylor and Francis journal you'd like to submit to, that's also a really helpful tool to be aware of. The second bit of your question was about, can you just repeat the second bit of your question?
The specific criteria of the or requirements for the article published on journal, engagement journal.
Okay. So each of our journals has on the website a lot of information that will answer all of the questions about what the journal looks for, how to submit, instructions for authors, what topics they're interested in, what types of papers. So if you go to the journal website for the individual journals, it's a really good idea to familiarise yourself with what that journal is interested in. Because the editors and the editorial boards have normally crafted clear instructions that say, we're really interested in papers from, let's say, Asia. We're really interested in papers on methodology, or we're really interested in literature reviews, or we're really interested in data notes. Lots of different things that will tell you what type of paper, what type of content they're interested in. They will also have instructions for authors which tell you how to submit, the length of the article that is allowed, what type of references to use, any data policy requirements. There's a whole range of things, but each journal has its own special policies. So you can't just say, this is the Taylor and Francis way. Each journal has its own special, clear way of doing things. And as the previous question around the length of time, it will tell you the impact factor or the site score of the journal. It will tell you the turnaround time, how quickly you might expect a response. It will tell you a whole range of things around impact of the articles that are published in that journal, who's on the editorial board, who's the editor, do they accept book reviews? There's all that information for each journal. So start with using the journal selector tool to look for the journals in your subject area, and then go and get to know those journals and have a look at those journals themselves. Hopefully, many of our journals will be familiar to you because you will be reading content in your subject area, and our journals should already be coming up in your citations and your references anyway. But if you're not sure, use the journal selector tool on the Taylor and Francis website, and it's just a quick AI-enabled shortcut to which journals are interesting to you, or come and speak to me and I'm happy to help as well. I hope that answered your question.
Okay, we have one more from our colleague from UPN Veteran Jakarta, but before that, if I may to follow up a bit, just quickly, from Bu Noviani's question. So in Indonesia system accreditation, national accreditation, or whatever that popular among us, we have this called research-based journal and community service-based journal. So, and for many of the scholars in Indonesia, we are also required to publish in international accredited journal on community service, so we have these 3 pillars of academics work, education or teachings, research, and community service. So for the outputs of the 2 pillars, research and community service, one of it is the obligation to publish in international journals, and it's part of our KPI. The issue then is that I think many of us find it quite difficult to find the so-called community service-based journals, which to my familiarity, there is no such term as community service-based journals. We know academic journals, scientific journals, but so basically the articles is written based on our community service activities. So I'm not sure, maybe that is also the thing that Bu Novian was asking. Thanks.
Oh, that's really helpful. Thanks for clarifying. That wasn't something I was aware of, so I've learned something. I've learned a lot today, but that's really helpful to know. I don't know. I will have to look and see what we have that would work for that type of article. We do have lots of different types of articles. So it would surprise me if we don't have something that would fit that. But if that's something that is a requirement, it's also interesting for us because maybe we could develop a new type of journal research output that would work for that particular market. So I think that's something I can explore after this. But I will have a look, I will ask the question, and I'll come back to you. So let's share details, or I can follow up and perhaps... but if that's something that a lot of you have as a requirement, then I think that's something we need to know so that we can help with that. Thank you.
The issue with that is that this kind of outputs is not really from a research activity, but it's more on applying our research products to society, to empowerment, for development, this kind of things. So it's more like a community service thing, community outreach things. If we fall into the criteria of academic journals, then there's not really a research kind of thing. So It's more like, I don't know, just the activity. But of course, we can do some analysis on that. It's kind of turn it into kind of like research, but in a very applicable ways. And of course, within the standard of international accredited journals, this might kind of like difficult to accommodate.
Yeah, I don't know. Without exploring that and kind of understanding a little bit more about them, it's difficult to say. But if it's a need and it's something that you need to have published, there are all sorts of ways that we can support you on that. For example, F1000, which is our open access platform, we have sections on there which are particular for particular institutions or for particular countries. The Gates Foundation, the Wellcome Foundation have a lot of funded research on there, for example. And that is a place for different types of content that is perhaps a bit non-standard. It's not quite the same thing as a full research article. Actually, F1000 was one of the first places that published null results. So instead of just not publishing anything where the experiment or the hypothesis wasn't proven, the Wellcome Trust and the Gates Foundation really wanted all of the research that was produced with their funding to be published. So they said, well, if it's a null result, we want to know that, because then we don't want somebody to waste their time redoing that experiment. So there's a lot of things where F1000 has allowed us to do some really innovative and creative offerings. So it's possible that there's some way we can develop that type of offering for you, knowing that it's different to a research article, but it's more of a like a case study of what happened, or it's a report rather than a research piece. As long as it's transparent that that's what it is, if we think there's value for people to learn from that from an international audience, then I think it's worth exploring.
Okay. With the F1000, so again, just something that reminds me of that. With the F1000, so there have been quite a lot of cases where the publication in F1000 journals are being rejected by the reviewer of, we have this national reviewer board for reviewing our promotion. And I've known some cases where their publication in F1000 journals were being declined or rejected or doesn't suit to the criteria. And this is, I think, something that, I mean, me, myself, I don't think it's fair, because publishing in F1000 doesn't mean that it's not the quality is bad or whatever. We know how tough and rigid it is in the review system and with the open science principles. But this is something that maybe we would like to suggest you to talk to our ministry. Hopefully tomorrow there will be a chance to do that, to review again the criteria for these publications of our scholars. Like, for example, there is this criteria that a publication with solo author cannot be qualified for considering your promotion. That is ridiculous. And also, like, a publication within a journal that is not specific to your discipline, such as F1000, that they think it's so open, it's so wide, does not meet the criteria for your promotion. In the past, even the special issue journal, special issue article, which is published in special issue in a journal, cannot be qualified. I'm not sure if that article still applies, but that is just ridiculous. So I think maybe when we talk more on what to do after this is also something that we need you as a publisher to also talk to the government, because we can't. This is something that, at the policy levels. With that, I invite colleague from UPN for the last question.
Thanks before for Mrs. Ayu and Ms. Katie. My name is Dwi Arwandi Yogi Saputra from UPN Veteran Jakarta from Jurnal Profesi Medika. In the last question, maybe Ms. Katie can give us tips and trick. What needs to be taken into account to ensure that the journal we manage is indexed by Scopus, based from governance to the substance, the article, and furthermore, what are the standards for the editorial teams and reviewers? Thanks before.
Thank you for the question. So I don't work for Scopus, so I can't speak for them, but I can give you some suggestions based on our experience as an international publisher who does work closely with Scopus and has a lot of Scopus index journals. But I just want to make it clear, I don't represent Scopus. I can't tell you like the hidden secret, cheat code to get in. I think the main things they're looking for, they are generally looking for a journal that has a clearly defined scope. So one of the colleagues earlier mentioned about should our journal be regional or should it be international? They do accept some journals which are regionally focused, but are clear that that's what they're doing. And they will, but if you are saying it's an international journal, then they're going to look for a number of things that define that as international. So having a broad range of international representation on the editorial board, having a clear mix of authorship from a geographical spread is important. They are looking at quality, so they will be looking at citations and impact from those papers. So again, don't go for indexing until you're confident that your journal is starting to get clear numbers of citations. It's starting to really build, because once you've been rejected, you have to wait a little while before you can go again. So as I say, journal development plan is really important. What is the journal trying to do? What is its unique position in the market? There's a lot of journals, not just from Indonesia, but a lot of journals in the world. There's, we publish 2,500, you publish, is Indonesia, nearly 2,500. Across the world, there are many, many thousands of journals. So what is your uniqueness? What is the unique thing that your journal's trying to achieve? And how is it better and different? What is its offering to other researchers? You'll think of your journal as a shop, and you're trying to attract people to come and buy your content. They're trying to kind of come and use your service as a journal to disseminate their content, their hard-fought research for the international community. So how can you attract them if you don't know what the shop is selling, and it's actually selling apples, giraffes, and pens? It needs to have a very clear, meaningful scope. So internationalization of the editorial board, a clear scope, a clear mission about what you're trying to achieve. In terms of governance, it needs to be a rigorous peer review process. Nobody's going to publish with you if they're not sure if their article is going to be going to count towards their own promotion or their own review board. We've just talked about how things are looked at by the review board at universities. So does it have a rigorous peer review process that's published on the website for people to see? Does it have a clear policy around AI and data policies? How quickly does it publish? There's a lot of different things that you can make sure are in place before you go for a Scopus indexing. The journal needs to be publishing regularly as well. So it can't just publish one issue one year and 3 issues the next, or 10 articles one year and 4 the next. It has to be regularly publishing. Ideally, it wants to be publishing 3 or 4 issues. That's the quarterly publication is the kind of gold standard in terms of minimum requirement. But regular publication, clear governance, internationalization, and a clear scope and mission for the journal, those are all things that you can do yourselves. And then, whatever feedback Scopus gives you, if they do reject, listen to what they've got to say about. We heard a couple of examples around maybe the seniority of the editorial roles is not enough. Those researchers are not strong enough, in which case you might need to recruit some additional researchers to bolster that editorial team. So hopefully that gives you just a few suggestions, but you know, it's not easy, I recognise that. And it's a competitive environment, so it's great if you can get there and you can get Scopus Index, then wonderful. But don't go into it thinking you're going to do it without really thinking about a plan, internationalisation, a mission for the journal, and making sure that you've covered some of those things that I mentioned. I hope that helps.
All right, that one last question was also from the Zoom, so we don't have anything else from the Zoom as well. And I think it's sufficient if we close this session with a very thank you for Kathy on this occasion, and please applause for Kathy. And I believe we've had such a great discussions, comments and feedbacks also, and responses, which I think it's a big modalities for us to enrich and develop our journals and management. With that, thank you, terima kasih Bapak Ibu untuk partisipasinya. Untuk sesi ini saya perkenankan saya tutup. Mohon maaf kalau ada yang kurang berkenan. Saya kembalikan ke Pak Kalem, yang juga kalem, Kepala Lembaga. Terima kasih sebelumnya.
Ya. Terima kasih Ibu Ayu, terima kasih Ibu Kathy telah mengawal dan mengisi sesi 1 dengan sangat baik. Bapak Ibu semua yang saya hormati, tabi pun. Nah, yang saya ngetes saja di sana kaget pasti kan. Tabi pun, mohon izin untuk saya berbicara. Kalau tadi di sini menjawab ya pun, tabi pun. Nah, udah, alhamdulillah sudah mulai ramai. Bapak Ibu semua yang saya hormati, saya mohon izin atas nama LPPM Universitas Lampung tentu mengulang apa yang disampaikan Ibu Rektor tadi, menyampaikan selamat datang pada Bapak Ibu semua, terutama 32 delegasi atau 32 peserta dari 20 PTN yang alhamdulillah berkenan hadir pada pelaksanaan konferensi pada 2 hari ini. Dan terima kasih juga kepada teman-teman pengelola jurnal yang sebenarnya terundang 52 yang menyatakan kehadiran, tapi saat ini masih hadir 38. Mudah-mudahan nanti beberapa jurnal yang terdaftar bisa menyusul kita di sesi yang siang hari nanti. Bapak Ibu semua yang saya hormati, sesaat lagi kita akan beristirahat, kita akan makan bersama di siang hari dengan menu khasnya Lampung, pindang. Bagi Bapak Ibu yang senang dengan sensasi, silahkan makan pindang kepala. Bagi yang senang dengan kelembutan, silahkan makan pindang yang badan dan ekor, begitu ya. Setelah itu, setelah makan bersama di siang hari ini, silahkan nanti istirahat. Kita menyiapkan musola di lantai 5 dan masjid di Fakultas Pertanian, mana yang nyaman saja. Silahkan bisa sholat zuhur, mungkin jamak bagi yang jauh. Kita sholat di lantai 5, nanti kita naik lift, kita sudah siapkan musola di sana. Cukup untuk 20-an orang kita sholat di sana. Bagi yang hendak ke masjid Fakultas Pertanian silahkan. Dan kemudian kita nanti mudah-mudahan akan memulai sesi yang kedua tepat pukul 13.00 dengan narasumber yang tidak kalah hebat dibanding yang sudah hadir pada pagi hari ini. Kita akan kehadiran nanti Profesor Dr. Parmin SPD MPD. Beliau malang melintang dalam dunia perjulanan di level nasional. Beliau juga kemarin tim penyusun panduan akreditasi jurnal nasional, dan kemudian nanti mungkin juga beliau akan mendampingi kita untuk sesi praktek bagaimana kemudian kita melakukan proses akreditasi dan reakreditasi. Kemudian setelah Prof. Parmin, sore nanti, siang nanti kita akan sharing session dengan 2 pengelola jurnal dari Universitas Lampung yang sudah terindeks Scopus. Bukan untuk menggurui dan bukan untuk seolah-olah lebih hebat Bapak Ibu. Tujuan utama dari sharing session itu adalah kita bersama-sama mengidentifikasi kira-kira isu-isu yang selama ini dihadapi oleh para pengelola jurnal itu apa, dan kemudian besok akan menjadi rekomendasi bersama dari konferensi ini. Unila misalnya ada isu setiap tahun BPK itu memeriksa kita terkait dengan pembayaran penulis APC. Itu dikelola oleh siapa? Masuknya ke rekening mana, dikelola, diperuntukkan untuk apa, itu selalu menjadi perdebatan. Dan tahun ini kita juga diperiksa BPK terkait dengan APC yang dibayarkan oleh penulis untuk dia publish artikelnya di jurnal-jurnal yang kita miliki, baik itu Sinta maupun Scopus. Besok atau sore nanti kita akan mendiskusikan itu dan beberapa isu yang muncul, dan itu menjadi isu bersama bagi kita pengelola jurnal, akan menjadi bagian dari rekomendasi konferensi kita esok hari. Kemudian Bapak Ibu, setelah sesi sore nanti, saya mewakili Universitas Lampung memohon dengan hormat untuk kita nanti bisa makan malam bersama di lantai 1, barbekyuan kita. Ya, silahkan nanti bakar ayam, bakar bakso, bakar apa, saya undang semuanya, dan insya Allah nanti pimpinan universitas, Bu Rektor, para dekan, para pimpinan juga akan membersamai, dan juga Miss Ketty, Bu Ketty nanti juga berkenan untuk hadir, nanti Bu Ayu disampaikan, kita bersama-sama. Bahwa nanti masih ada perlu diskusi dengan Bu Ketty sambil sesi makan siang atau nanti malam bisa. Dan kemudian Bapak Ibu, setelah nanti makan malam bersama, ya, kita akan hantarkan kembali Bapak Ibu ke hotel. Tapi sebelum itu tentu kami mohon maaf apabila ada yang kurang berkenan dari penjemputan kemarin, ada yang kurang berkenan dari penjemputan tadi pagi, ada yang namanya belum masuk ternyata ada, sehingga kemudian kita harus menunggu dua orang yang sebenarnya tidak perlu ditunggu, begitu kan. Dan kemudian nanti malam kita hantarkan ke hotel, besok pagi kita jemput lagi untuk sesi pagi, mudah-mudahan tepat waktu jam 8 karena Pak Dirjen hanya punya waktu jam 8 sampai jam 10, dan setelah itu beliau akan langsung ke Lampung Selatan untuk meninjau sekolah Garuda di Lampung, dan setelah itu sorenya beliau akan kembali ke Jakarta, ke bandara. Kita akan terus sesi di sini, dan kemudian besok sore kita akan merekomendasikan catatan-catatan hasil konferensi ini yang secara resmi akan menjadi masukan bagi kementerian yang diusulkan oleh BKS PTN wilayah Barat. Apapun itu tentu semuanya akan kita sepakati esok hari. Kemudian Bapak Ibu, hari Sabtu kami menawarkan yang kemarin disampaikan dalam undangan itu Explore Pahawang, satu destinasi wisata yang saat ini sedang hits, yang bahkan diisi 80%-nya oleh orang luar Lampung. Saking menariknya tempat itu bagi yang jauh. Bagi yang dekat kadang-kadang yang istimewa itu tidak menjadi istimewa karena sudah dianggap biasa begitu ya. Meskipun belum pernah ke sana. Prof Noviani jangan-jangan belum pernah gitu kan. Tapi menganggap sudah paling. Kami kalau melihat dalam respon Bapak Ibu dari 32 peserta dari luar Unila, sepertinya yang berniat hanya 4. Ya, apakah harus bayar? Ya iyalah, nyewa perahu kan bayar. Masa semuanya minta gratis, nggak asik juga. Sementara dari 52 pengelola jurnal Unila yang mau ikut 12. Nah lumayan kan? Nah kalau 12 tambah 4 itu hanya 16. Perahunya itu harus 30 minimal. Kan? Kalau diisi hanya 16, pesan kapalnya itu untuk 30, maka kan harus mengisi 14 lain, bayarnya tambah. Jadi Bapak Ibu semuanya saya hormati, sebelum kita putuskan tetap atau tidak agenda Pahawang Explore itu, maka bagi Bapak Ibu semua di tempat ini, baik tamu-tamu kami yang terhormat dari luar Unila, maupun teman-teman yang dari Unila, setelah sesi ini, sebelum makan siang, keluar ruangan ini mungkin berkenan untuk kembali registrasi ulang ke depan bagi yang berminat. Baru nanti siang kita putuskan, kalau yang berminat di bawah kuota, maka dengan berat hati agenda itu kami anggap tidak ada. Kan begitu Ibu ya? Kalau Unila, ya saya sih sanggup bayarin gitu kan, karena saya tahu kapasitas. Kalau nanti meskipun saya minta sama Prof Agus, ya Prof ya? Yang nanti jenengan jatah bayarin teman-teman Unila yang 12 itu. Setelah jenengan bayarin nanti saya ganti. Bercanda Prof. Ya. Dari 52 hanya 12. Waduh, nah gitu kan. Karena bayar tadi ya, Bapak Ibu. Sekali lagi kita tutup sesi pagi ini dengan saya menyampaikan rasa hormat dan terima kasih kepada narasumber telah mengisi sesi dengan baik. Terima kasih kepada Bapak Ibu semua telah menjadi bagian dari penyelenggaraan konferensi ini. Kita akan makan bersama, kemudian bagi yang ingin eksplor Pahawang, saya persilahkan untuk ke depan registrasi sehingga kemudian nanti kita akan memutuskan apakah agenda itu tetap kita lakukan apa tidak. Sekali lagi kami mohon maaf, sedalam-dalamnya maaf apabila ada hal-hal yang kurang berkenan. SPPD insya Allah sudah selesai dan siap diambil, disimpan, diamankan sehingga kita tidak lagi kepikiran untuk urusan SPPD. Silakan disimpan, diambil dan kemudian kita sampai hari besok tinggal berfokus untuk penyelenggaraan konferensi. Demikian Bu Ayu, kami aturkan terima kasih dari moderator, Bu Keti, terima kasih banyak telah menjadi narasumber yang luar biasa. Bapak Ibu semua, hormat dan terima kasih serta permohonan maaf. Mudah-mudahan sekali lagi acara dan sesi-sesi berikutnya berjalan lancar dan memberikan kebermanfaatan dalam pengelolaan jurnal kita semua. Allahul muwaffiq ila aqwamit thoriq. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Ya, silakan Bapak Ibu, kita makan siang keluar, bisa di luar. Kemudian bagi yang tadi mau ikut berkenan untuk registrasi ke depan supaya kita bisa memastikan. Terima kasih.